All right, hang on. For thematic reasons, I have to unbutton my shirt first. Hey, come over and have some fun with Crazy Typeline, your source for everything that has ever happened and the possibilities yet to be. Gaze into the untamed cosmic wilderness of the far reaches of minds mundane and fantastical as we all contemplate our navels for the next 2 hours in chains, and that is if we keep it short. I'm the arch of fast-talking craftsman and indestructible super god, your level 3 overseer, the greatest living human, only true Christian, and cloud chaser eternal, Tarbuck Transom.
You forgot Firebrand within a piece.
I have to cycle it out. I gotta keep it fresh. Who else we got? Speak of yourself.
I'm Ouro, writer, aesthetician, and Twilight scholar. You'll see what that means when this episode is out, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm Urcoy, the rogue of space, your local entropyromancer.
And I am gentleAnachronist. I'm the guest for today. I'm slightly sick. I apologize for my voice. I am an airhead fascinator, Classpecting pseudo-expert, and hater of Joseph Campbell. Hopefully somebody appreciates that joke.
Dude, hater of Joseph Campbell 5. I just gave myself a high five in your stead.
Nice. I would also like to say that I am here for nepotism and no other reason. I am Urcoy's sibling.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell from our double nice at the same time.
I cannot tell.
Yeah, we all know how to recognize siblings by the synchronicity of their niceness. This is the only way to do it, I hear. Genetics is very complicated.
Mm-hmm. That seems like the most consistent, measurable thing. So what do we got first? We actually have a Discord
first
post.
we got a... Yeah, right, we got
This is illegal.
Is it?
You can't have Discord post on the Reddit post type line.
Well, it's not Reddit post, it's development of neurotyping, and no one ever bothered to make a Reddit post of this.
Okay.
It took me a long time to actually figure out what this link was exactly linking to.
Oh, yeah, it's a message in the proper main neurotyping Discord by Bhu, of something that would later come to be called Wormhole Theory.
Wormholes.
And essentially the idea is you pick the 3x3 section of the chart that your type forms a corner of. There's only one of them, and then the types that are on the other corners of that 3x3 square are types you could potentially wormhole into, or that you have some association to. Mm-hmm. And that was Bhu's sort of version of heat maps. He thought that your secondary heat map points would likely to be in these, or that you could have double types with one of these. He himself, typing himself an overseer bookkeeper.
Yeah, the way I I didn't consider it being like 3x3, but the way I conceived of it was like within each quadrant you pick your like direction or corner, and then each other quadrant is the same corner. That's another way you can visualize that.
I definitely picked I got a completely different meaning, probably because I just didn't read enough of the post or something. I will talk about what I read from it later.
All right. So what we have is these 4 clusters. The first is human calculator, fascinator, contemplative, externalist. The second is analyst, new type, understanding, impressionist. Third, technician, overseer, bookkeeper, clear-sighted. And fourth, quick-witted, aesthetician, level-headed, pure instinct. Those are the corners of each of the possible 3x3 squares. And it's interesting. There are some more notes that I'd have to make on it in relation to a later post.
I'm suddenly seeing the way that you're explaining it. That's not how I conceived of this at all, like, in my head.
I guess I'll put a picture of it on screen to make it visually make sense for people. It's on there now.
Yeah.
People have complained that we don't announce when there are pictures on screen, which is a lie. We always do. We always say there's an image.
I'm gonna make a joke about that later, even. Yeah. Okay.
So it's specifically referring to the corners, not everything contained within that 3x3.
Only the corners.
Yeah.
Or you could also do it the way that Koi does. Just pick your direction in the quadrant and then that direction of every quadrant that also points you to these.
That's what I was going to explain this theory as, is like
that's
keep
slightly
your position
different
in
though,
every quadrant.
That's just a different
it
way
leads you to the exact same types.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as somebody in the bottom left of the abstract quadrant, if I were to lexical shift according to this theory, then I become a technician. Gross.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have already kind of basically rediscovered this idea in the past when we were talking about the quadrants in the first place. Like, you keep your position within the 2x2 quadrant and you shift quadrants. It has this, like...
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's kind of what came to mind when I was reading about this. I was like, and I think there's actually something like a picture that's in the vicinity of this conversation, which is here, if you want.
Yeah, Kip's compute abstract understood instinct chart.
It's
no, Romans. Right, wait, it's not Kip's. He says it's Kip's, but it's Romans.
It's this right here. Yeah. Which actually the visualization helped even more. Like, I liked the idea because it provides an interesting insight into, there's a context dependent, arbitrary? No, not arbitrary. Relative, that's the word, Jesus. There's relative relationships and I think this provides an interesting insight into like the joke that you wrote down, Tarbuck, about how you would be the bookkeeper of the top right quadrant.
Yes. Yeah. If I were to shift down into the order quadrant, like order Tarbuck is right here. Order Tarbuck. Order Tarbuck is a bookkeeper. Oh no. Oh no. This is even worse than being a technician. I beat up on the order quadrant so hard.
Maybe your like contemplative thing, you're like combining, you're doing the compute and order thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Any friend in the chat, oh my god, it's the show. It is the show.
It is the show. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, so this is specifically about you'd be more likely to have a secondary type in one thing that shares your leaning according to Roman's chart with the subtypes within the quadrants. Yeah, and my problem, I guess I just think that heat maps are a lot more personal than that. I think your second heat map point or whatever, if you have one of those, could be pretty much anywhere, and that there's not much of a pattern to those.
Yeah.
Like, I personally don't fit this pattern for one.
Right.
I guess I'm kind of close to Impressionist, and Analyst, new type or secondary type is okay. None of these fit well. I'd be willing to believe that these are maybe more common as secondary types for someone in there, but I can kind of see the similarity that he's picking up on, again, from Rowan's chart. How those might work, but I am unconvinced to some greater structure to second types.
Well, I think that like it can provide you some kind of insight as far as if you were to take your root type and then quadrant shift, like very intentionally quadrant shift. Because they all follow this activity domain structure to them.
Yeah.
Like I order the abstract as an overseer. That's what it is to be me. So if I were to go order, which I won't do because I already do order, that maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm so repulsed by the bookkeepers. We gaze into each other and neither one of us sees like we each see too much of ourselves in the other one, and it's not something either of us likes. I botched that quote. I was trying to do Lord of War, the Nicolas Cage movie where he's an arms dealer selling guns in Africa.
One of those people have watched all the Nicolas Cage.
Very relevant considering the later Homestuck content.
The way I conceive of this, I don't really think of it as like heat maps exactly. I think it's interesting having like a 2 square moving over. Like in some ways, I feel like it's more significant than just your neighboring types. Like that's just kind of obvious that you have some amount of neighboring types. But if you think of it as you already have one sort of direction, like mine is the abstract, so whichever quadrant approach I then take, it has that angle to it. So my instinct approach is the impressionist. Order would be understanding, like Benjamin Sisko going crazy or something. My top left would be analyst. Seems to.
That's what I meant by like the activity domain thing.
Yeah.
Like there's a thing that you do, order or abstract or compute or whatever, and then the domain, the quadrant that you're in is what you do it to. So if you change what you're doing it to, you're still doing the same thing.
I guess I can. I think that's kind of a problem with doing the double types because that feels very extreme. For example, for you bookkeeper feels kind of difficult to imagine because okay, you wouldn't understood. You wouldn't order. That just seems like going a bit far. Whereas I could kind of imagine, also taking instinct approach to order, therefore level-headed. Probably if I had to pick a square in the order quadrant, I'd probably pick level-headed, so that works. But doing that to instinct, like, okay, what would I do in instinct quadrant? Again, instinct. I don't think I could do PI pretty well. I don't think I could do that well.
When I shift down into the instinct quadrant, I feel like that actually isn't a terrible place for me to wind up, in clear-sighted. Because like that feels right to me in some way. Like if I'm thinking about times where I have put myself aside and just paid attention to another person, something that I am loath to do as one of the more self-centered people.
Of course.
Like I feel like that definitely does happen. And there's definitely like technician moments that I have, like particularly when I'm working, in the research phase of working, I feel pretty technician-y, I guess. I didn't identify it as such. Maybe this is like rearranging how I look at the chart in like a global sense. And I guess when I'm actually doing work and in charge of other people directly, a lot of what I do wind up doing is be bookkeepery, which is good for a sales floor environment or for just like chiseling something over and over. I don't know why, but I think of bookkeeper stuff as being very repetitive.
It's the making sure all the fundamentals are laid out very clearly. Maybe that's not what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Just a perfect enclosed system.
Yeah, follow procedure, Yeah. Yeah. So I can especially see why people on this show wouldn't think of me that way, because you don't see me in those contexts. Because it's not like I record while I'm working for the boring parts. I'll record like a 2-second clip and then turn the camera off and finish what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Also, I haven't made a video in like a year.
Oh, you are a technician, just like me. Sorry, that was mean. I apologize. But yeah, I guess I can see it when I take on more day-to-day tasks, or especially organizing stuff, like doing the the drudgery of organizing this podcast. I guess that could be seen as a level-headed mode, an instinctual approach to order.
Or maybe this is actually just bullshit, and I'm just trying to justify something because I appreciate the symmetry.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's perfect. I'm just trying to get as much positive stuff out of it as I can.
I think there is something to this in that, or not, and not saying as proof, but what's interesting to me about it is it sort of almost is like it's like a more narrowed subset of like what I want to call like a checkerboard sort of theory.
Oh yeah,
where like in a way the diagonals or leapfrogs are somehow more related than the directly adjacent ones, if that makes sense. Like that one post where there was like oh geez.
That can did not want to open.
That one post where like they were alternating black and white.
Yeah.
I feel like there is
checkerboard theory.
I don't know what the distinction is. I don't know that I agree with the original point of that post about what the difference was or but I do feel like there is something perhaps almost, I don't know. That might not be it. Oh God.
Yeah.
Also, Annie is demanding a shout out, so shout outs to Annie in the chat.
Yeah, these are great comments.
Shout out to Annie Fred.
Hi, Annie Fred.
We will get on that merch. We will have our feet
We see
on our,
you.
plastered onto socks that you can wear. So you can wear our feet.
Oh God.
Should I do more foot content? I've been using my feet more in my work to like hold a stock piece while I resaw it and stuff.
You need that foot cam while you work.
That sounds like the equivalent of watching it's like that thing where like you record someone while they're watching a movie.
Oh God.
Oh, watch-alongs, yeah. We actually have a regular watch-along event in my server.
So you don't see the movie, you just see them.
Oh.
But it's like instead you just see their feet moving and wiggling. Just
that's
doing
even worse.
No, it's horrible.
Tabak, please make a video of you working. Just snippets of that, but it's only the one in which they see your feet, and it's called just I don't know, construction footage with the word foot highlighted or something.
Yeah, the foot part would be like all caps.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Footage, I love that. Anyway.
All right. Yeah, I have some more points on this, but they only work in conjunction with a post that comes up later, so I will make them then.
Also, I want to draw attention to the fact that right now we have completely filled out the abstract quadrant with all four of us.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
Nice.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'm the human calculator.
Yeah, we haven't
this.
had a proper fascinator on here yet, so nice.
I hope I'm a fascinator. I don't actually know for sure, but it's my best guess.
Well, fascinator overseer-ish.
Yeah.
The reason I said airhead in my introduction is because I really struggle to like nail things down. Which is why I put myself as top left. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I chop out a lot of my ums and uhs when I can.
I really hope that this theory is true, because if it is true, then it would be a really great troubleshooting tool for like trying to type yourself. Like if you see how you relate to various quadrants, then that can narrow your typing down to like 1 of 4. And if you know that you spend most of your time in one quadrant, then that's got you.
Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And I think I like what I like about this whole sort of let's say modular approach to neurotyping, where you can kind of put yourself in whatever corner of a given 2x2 or 3x3 or whatever. It fits in with the fact that like there isn't a distinctive cutoff for linear, lateral, lexical impressionists. Like they kind of are just gradient axes that kind of start in an arbitrary place and end in an arbitrary place, and we don't really have there could be an outside the chart placement.
Yeah, either like fuzzy or just like logarithmic or something.
Yeah, like there is a human limit, but also there could be things that are more or less than human that could land there, or humans with a very different cognition.
Like,
so it's kind of
like Modrons and Slotty. Like,
Yeah.
like those things that I did way back when in the episode where we had to find monster pictures, and that was
Yes.
fun and difficult.
And bugs are just living algorithms.
Speaking of bugs being linear or lexical algorithms, that's a reference for later.
Yes.
I thought it was the next post, and then I opened the next
No,
post,
it's
and I was wrong. Did
Yes,
somebody
we're
wanna
almost
go
there.
over the next
Yeah,
post?
should we still move on, or do you have more notes in this one?
I think we've done it well enough.
All right. In that case, Dual Chart Neurotyping by Cooler Kid 1692. It's a breakdown into 4 axes. And it separates the chart into an intrinsic and extrinsic one. The intrinsic one being called cognition, the extrinsic socialization. With the x-axis he calls focality between direct and lateral.
The
Direct,
y
I don't know why he
axis.
says direct. Could just be, didn't say that? Okay. Direct could just be linear, but he says direct versus lateral. Essentially the same thing as linear lateral.
Yeah.
X-axis, abstraction, lexical, impressionistic, also says pretty much the same thing. And then there's the extrinsic chart, which has for the y-axis temperament, and for the x-axis communicativeness. Taciturn versus outgoing for some reason. I don't think outgoing is necessarily the same thing as communicative. I think that's a pretty big issue with this.
And
But-
the temperament ones are relaxed versus intense.
Yeah, those are the same ones Beatrice used, exactly.
I'm not sure that I like this because it feels arbitrary. Like it feels like it's just taking bits and pieces from other like personality type systems and putting them on axis. That's kind of meaningless to an extent.
I like personality charts and all, but this is just like a completely different thing. Can I get an all 2-axis systems are the same in chat?
Yeah.
No. But yes.
This I like. If I were to do it, I mentioned last episode, I think there's 2 charts. I would just put the neuro chart again. I would just have one that what you look like, but the one you actually are is the first one.
Yeah.
What I don't like about the second chart, especially in relation to the first one, is the fact that so the neurotyping chart, which is basically what the first chart is, the cognition chart, is trying to describe a mechanical function, right? Like how your cognition mechanically works. The second one is not a mechanical description of emotions or temper or like sociality or anything like that, whatever the word is. It's just kind of the same thing as, I don't know, MBTI or something like that, describing gradients of emotional states, which could fluctuate very heavily based on context.
Right.
Like I could place myself, depending on how I'm feeling or where I am or who I'm with, I could place myself in a very different place on the second chart. So I feel like it kind of is useless it's not useful in the same way at all.
Right. Your position.
Yeah, I mean,
what I would want out of a chart is some set of factors that doesn't change when we make your life shittier or less shitty.
Yes,
Whereas,
exactly.
Relaxed versus intense temperament is there's a lot of reasons why that would fluctuate wildly based on your station in life.
Yeah, if you're excited or stressed, you will be intense. If you're tired or calm or, I don't know, high or something, you'll be relaxed.
I'm feeling pretty intense taciturn about this post.
He brings up that this is to fix some issues where someone might believe that a person who is, for example, very communicative would be lexical because clearly they have no issues speaking, or that a person who doesn't speak much might be impressionistic despite this not being the case. So it doesn't read to me, at least, as a proposal for, okay, I mean, it's kind of formatted as, okay, here you have a second chart, but the usefulness I see in it is you state straight up that there's a different thing for communicativeness and so on, for things that someone who doesn't know anything about it might confuse for lexicality. So they already know, okay, this isn't that. I'll focus on the other aspects of how you even conceptualize of lexemic objects, etc.
Yeah, I mean, that was one good thing about the original video, was the inclusion of...
Because Beatrice already does that with the temperament one, which also might be mistaken for lexicality, because the green column has all those chill, sort of cold distance scientist types, and red has, I don't know, hot-headed idiots.
Yeah.
Like myself.
There's another thing about the communicativeness axis that there's kind of a, what's the word, disparity between the word communicativeness and what the description actually says, which is defines a person's tendency towards either avoiding initiating communication, taciturn, or seeking to initiate communication, outgoing. I don't know that initiating communication is the same thing as communicativeness.
I firmly agree.
Yes.
Communicativeness is easy to misconstrue as verbose or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like the wrong word to describe what they're going for, but maybe that's nitpicking. I don't know.
Maybe that's Lexi nitpicking.
Yeah. Either way, I'm not quite sure what exactly. Anyway.
I like how in the comments here, I was like excited about this for a little bit, and I was like, oh, I'm cool, I'm gonna make charts. I did not make charts. I didn't make any charts. I forgot about this immediately.
Yeah.
You very clearly did not make charts. That's
Yeah. I also really like the comment by don't know who. Don't think you can fool me by repackaging the four humors. I've got your number.
Gags.
It is basically, yeah.
Yep.
Maybe it's not entirely the four humors, but like I said, it feels like an amalgamation of emotional dispositions.
I know somebody who used the temperaments of the four humors to randomly generate personality types for role-playing games, because it's like on theme and stuff. And so I've encountered a whole lot of temperament-based content, and yes, that's just the four humors repackaged for neurotyping. We're regressing. We're going backwards in society. What's happening?
And it's almost worse, because the response comment is basically saying that some of the types don't even fit on the chart. Like some of the four humors don't even fit on the the axis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The hazard diamond doesn't fit in the box, guys.
It feels like a thing that would have been sort of useful at the start of neurotyping to get people to not correlate certain things, but this late in, it's pretty much useless.
Yeah.
I do like what it's trying to do, but I feel like there's got to be a more stable, a more stable emotional mechanic, or disposition mechanic, not emotional mechanic, that you could pin down that would be more useful.
Yeah, there's too many things you'd have to decouple if you go like this.
Yeah, because like I said, this feels like something that they feel like two axes of things that can change a lot depending on how you're feeling.
Because this person is clearly pretty preoccupied with sort of keeping clean the intrinsic cognitive aspect of neurotyping, which is good. Like when they say, we can reasonably predict that a new type is going to have trouble explaining their ideas to someone who isn't similarly attuned. Like making sure that no new types can totally speak. It will just be in a cadence or in a vibe that will be easier to redistill for other new types than to someone who isn't familiar with it, and also reasonably predict like this might be a trend. It's not necessarily the case. They're pretty cautious about all of this.
Yeah, you can just get good at talking and get used to people also.
Yeah. So like I feel like this is on the right track, but maybe picked up on the wrong things to make a chart out of.
Yeah, that's probably not rigorous enough to get anything solid.
And then they made a chart.
Oh yeah, next post.
What's your neurotype? I think mine is chaotic good. That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like we're being so mean, but I'm trying to be fair.
I feel like we're gonna say good things about the next post of this person, so...
Yeah, like we say good things about good things and bad things about bad things. That's the show.
It's not even
There
that
you
this
go.
one is awful, it's just that the new ideas it brings into it aren't particularly useful.
Hey,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
And-
show is good things and bad things.
That's what
Yeah.
we're about.
I mean, a big part of this show is kind of pragmatics. It's what is useful to understanding neurotyping.
Yeah.
That's the dichotomy, right? That's the dichotomy. There's the useful things and the mystical bullshit, and both of them are loved.
Yeah,
Right.
only the
post was
extremes.
neither.
If you fall somewhere in the middle, fuck you. It's boring.
And if you fall outside of that dichotomy, God help you.
Okay, so speaking of a beautiful symmetry,
Oh,
this
yes.
next post, axes diagram, better
It is
edition.
beautiful.
Yeah.
You got the
very nice.
conceptual axis with lexical and impressionist, or categorical and impressionist, as we've been trying to push on the show, and the focal axis with convergent and divergent thinking rearing their ugly heads once again. But that's just because I don't like that labeling.
Yeah, the
Because-
labeling, it's just
Yeah.
like renamed. It's not actual, like,
Yeah,
we
it-
did a post, there was a post before about convergent, divergent thinking. This isn't actually what that is. It's just using that as linear lateral.
Right, yeah, that's the thing. All the stuff he has branching off of divergent/convergent thinking are things that relate perfectly to linear natural and make sense for this system.
Yep.
But they don't necessarily correlate to convergent or divergent thinking. Like, they're barely related to these concepts. He just slapped wrong labels on this for the sake of it, even though the idea is correct. It's
Yeah.
very confusing.
I personally really appreciate the idea of intentionally mislabeling something, but I don't think that's what happened.
Right.
I also like how each of these four categories have like while all the rest of the chart has like symmetrically colored and shaped boxes. Those four concepts are in unique ones. So lexical is in a circle that's blue. Impressionist is in a flag-shaped symbol that's like a wobbly rectangle that's like sort of a pink
Yeah,
color.
waving
You
flag.
mean a flag?
A flag, yes, I said a
red
flag. I said a flag-shaped.
Yes.
I was trying to be more specific.
Flag that is
Yeah.
waving specifically.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Can we
Wave
comment
the
upon
red
the idea that
flag.
impressionistic thinking is literally a red flag?
The red flag of communism, perhaps. Wave that red banner.
And then convergent thinking is it's like that's like a baseball. Isn't that like a home plate in baseball?
It's like
Yeah,
upside
it's a-
down home
it's
plate
like
or
a-
something.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
gray. And then divergent, which is like meant to point downward. It's like a downward pointing wedge kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then divergent thinking is I don't know that's like a hex.
It's
It's
a green bestagon.
yeah, it's a green hexagon, sort of pointing to either side.
It's slightly squashed.
Yeah. And then branching off from all of those things are very symmetrical sort of counterpart points describing
Yeah.
them.
The structure,
Yeah.
like the symmetry of it is really pretty, and it has pretty colors, and I like it. So like you get pairs like asynchronous firing, details first, or synchronous firing, overview first. Just
Okay,
say
so-
details first and overview first. Asynchronous and synchronous don't really match
Yeah,
here.
That's not what that is. Like, I don't really like the substance of the conceptual axis on here. All the things.
It kind of feels like it just took some terms from Timecake posts
Yes.
and put them on there.
Yeah, without actually reading them. Like, asynchronous firing is when you're like, that's when you're shooting like random ideas to try and find out what something is, and then synchronous firing is when you know what something is and you're just filling it in really quickly.
Yeah.
So it should be linear and lateral for those two
No.
things.
Should not, but okay.
Same for Gestalt. That's also a term Timecake used.
Should we actually go through all of this? Like in a semi-sequential, they kind of have arrows
yeah, we should
progressing.
do that
Yeah.
in a moment. Yeah, like, whole defined parts is kind of what Gestalt is, but yeah, just say whole defined parts. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. Should everyone do one quadrant?
There we go. What if we do our corresponding quadrant in the?
Oh yeah, so you
in
do
the,
top left, I do top right.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Where do we start?
Top
I
left.
guess fascinator and then reading order.
Okay.
Yeah.
So lexical thinking first.
All right. So we start with a lexical thinking. The lexical thinking circle, which has a sigma, denoting it underneath in parentheses. Down below, there's a little oval that says analysis and grounded thought typically comes more naturally. Yeah, I don't know about grounded thought. I don't know about that. Yeah.
Let's read it all before we react to it, huh?
Yeah. So, and then above we have compartmentalization, parts define whole, and then attached to that is the asynchronous firing, details first. And then to the left of the circle is thoughts formulate into structured approximations. Above that is tendency to express one's own ideas syntactically. Sorry. And then below is particular observations are realized first.
Okay. So then the top right we have impressionistic thinking, the red flag. I don't know what's that symbol, that circle.
That's
with the dash through it.
It's phi.
Right? No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. It's a capital letter phi. It's a Greek letter.
Yeah.
that thigh. So below that we have intuition and freeform thought typically comes more naturally. And then above we have the Gestalt, whole defines parts, and above that synchronous firing overview first. And then to the right of the flag we have thoughts formulate into raw sensory impressions. Above that there's tendency to express one's own ideas interpretively. And then below it says particular notions are realized first.
Yeah. Okay. Way down in the focal axis, you have convergent thinking with a lowercase lambda for some reason. Probably because an uppercase lambda just looks like an arrow.
Yeah, you gotta get the cool one, the Half-Life one that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. An uppercase lambda is just like a little carrot, but, bigger. Or like an A with no cross in the middle. All right. Convergent thinking, typically more succinct, seeks the most understood path and therefore is generally more decisive. Anchored trains of thought and therefore greater cohesion and consistent central idea.
Yeah. Finally, we have divergent thinking with a delta, capital again, which leads to typically more verbose. It also leads to fluctuating trains of thought, which then leads to greater interconnectivity and a central idea that often changes. Divergent thinking also comes with the seeking of a path of least resistance and generally more exploratory behavior. And that's it. And yeah, it's a very nice, pretty chart, and most of the things in here that aren't the literal terms are good and give like nice symmetries. Hey, I'm back. Okay.
Dude, we didn't hear any of your explanation, but I'm sure it shows up on the recording. So
okay.
Guess it'll be fine.
Right.
The listeners will hear it. It's fine.
Yeah.
We'll get it in edit.
Yeah, right. I read the thing. Okay.
That was amazing.
I cannot. You picked up again at the perfect moment. I thought you were doing a bit like.
I will wait for this long and then start speaking.
Yeah, I'll just wait and then be like, "Oh, that was nice."
That's a void moment. He got voided out for a second.
Oh,
serendipity.
Well, we'll get to that. Never mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So
All right.
yeah, like we said, focal axis ones are pretty good.
Yeah, the focal axis ones are great. Greater cohesion versus greater interconnectivity.
Yes.
That one's not so great because
Okay.
cohesion and interconnectivity are kind of the same thing, but I get what you were going for anyway, so I'll let it pass. I will allow it.
The other one there, the central idea often changes. That's a good distinction there. It's always
that's
switching.
a really cool litmus test. The idea that what the center focus that you're branching off from changes is a really cool insight. So much so that I'm going to write it down right now.
Yeah, it also very nicely ties into Beatrice's idea from what's it called, Life in the Spiral, where she goes into essentially as a very lateral person, your entire life is just one train of thought, but the focus of it changes, like what the important bits are.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
You're like building one large sort of network, and
exactly.
the center
Oh,
is
God.
like moving around and sort of tugging on the whole thing at once.
That's like too real, and it's giving me an existential crisis. So I'm gonna just move on from that.
Seeks the path of least resistance versus seeks the most understood path. That sounds controversial. What do you guys think?
I don't know.
I think there is a better. Yeah, no. Something about this feels like the wrong terms or the wrong. Yeah,
No,
I don't know. Something's iffy.
Something's fucky.
No, again, it's words are difficult, but the way I interpret this is most understood path is just, yep, I've solved similar patterns this way. I'll just do this because done that before. Same
That
process.
one makes sense to me,
Yeah.
Kind of linear thinking. And for lateral thinking, it's just, oh, this seems like a reasonable thing to do here, and then you just go off on whatever this first impulse was and see where it leads you. That to me is the path of least resistance. It doesn't mean that's the easiest one, but it's the one that flows more naturally for you.
And let me hit you guys with an interesting thought here. Doesn't that kind of sound similar to lexical and impressionist? A little bit.
The classic 90-degree flip.
Yes, where the sort of the most understood path sounds kind of like lexemes, and then the sort of more free-form approach is more of an impressionist thing. That's
I don't know.
the two axes are the same.
I think I've finally refined my understanding of left and right enough where I no longer feel that applies exactly, but I can totally see why someone would apply it by coming to a different understanding from me.
Right. I don't actually entirely believe that. I'm just saying, like,
Wouldn't it
it's
be
kind of
fun?
funny
Yeah.
that these particular details map up.
If
to
we
the other
think of a
axis.
pure instinct person, or like, I guess Roman is pure instinct bookkeeper chart looper, so he's not the best example. But also for him, it feels like you just see the thing that you've done before works, kind of, and it's less a rigid structure, but it's still kind of this motion, this pattern.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the same thing. It just sounds similar.
No. Yeah. I was partly making a sort of
Yeah.
a funny.
Of course.
All right, so here's another thing to zoom in on and wonder what the fuck. Tendency to express one's own ideas syntactically versus interpretively. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
What is
syntactically, like
yeah.
in a syntax like structure is how I would versus in this just seems like in language versus in art or dance or anything else. Interpretatively, just as opposed to
Whenever I make a
I guess
decision,
you could
I do an interpretive dance in my head.
Yeah, I guess you could expand syntax to non-language things and just say it's structure versus non-structure.
I wanted to interpret it as reading versus writing, but that's obviously backwards because what is impressionism if not dyslexia? The inability to read.
Yeah, wasn't it that she mentioned her brother is like bad at reading but a really good writer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like the complete opposite in this case.
Right. But it also don't... That isn't what syntactically implies to me. Why would that be reading?
No, the syntactically would be the writing, and interpretively would be the reading. You're reading something. You're interpreting.
Okay. To me, writing and orthonolato are interpretation of like an idea into a form that maybe... I guess how interpretation is also the consumption aspect. Kind of.
Yes.
That's not what I took from it at all. Okay.
Yeah, that's just the way that I was reading it. Don't know if it's like, I don't think that it's accurate, but it's a fun idea.
Right.
What about structured approximations versus raw sensory impressions? I think that seems right.
Similar to me too.
I can see what you're going for there, but maybe it's because I'm spoiled because one of my best friends is the most lexical person alive, and so I'm getting a really good example of a lexi, but it just seems like the approximations part doesn't hold, because the thing that I like about lexis is when they are able to phrase something like cleanly that captures everything. And this gets into my recent theory, the anti-backwards method of lexical analysis.
What?
Yes, I'm going to make a post about it, but I figure I might as well debut this on the show. Okay, this is now about the anti-backwards method of lexical analysis. So what you do is you try to put a concept into words, intentionally fail, and then learn something by impressionistic analysis of your own shortcomings there. Like, if you try to phrase it some way, then knowing, like, having the experience of what gets cut out tells you that it's there at all. And so it tells you more things about the concept that you're trying to study.
Right, yeah. You look at why it doesn't satisfy you.
Yes. Named after the anti-backwards crystal from Bender's Game, the third Futurama movie. Which was a mystical D12 that was actually the thing that makes dark matter into a usable energy source from an alternate universe. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea. Like that is kind of the you don't even have to put it into writing necessarily. Just kind of you're forming a thought into something that can be communicated and digested again, and you see if it even works at all, if it's even the right thing. You sort of get to the correct thing by like obfuscation. It's like you're playing Sudoku with your words.
Yes.
Like crossing sections out.
That's a very good way to put what I was trying to get at there.
Yeah,
and that's why
I have been playing Sudoku. That's why I bring that
up. That's why the anti-backwards method is also a call forward to another post. I'll point it out when we get there about. I have lost the subject of this sentence, so particular observations are realized first versus particular notions are realized first. What's the difference between an observation and a notion?
Yeah, I mean,
it's the difference external.
It's the difference between a description and a hunch, but I don't know for sure.
I think description and a hunch is the most charitable reading that I could go with. So, because I wish it was true, therefore it is. No, disavow. That's not how I think at all.
Quickly back to the approximation bit, because I don't think this means to imply that it's not there or sort of orbiting the point, but approximations can be like infinitesimally exact to the thing. Like the maths are computers works on approximations. Hopefully the results are still accurate to the degree to which humans can even perceive. So yeah, approximation doesn't mean bad approximation.
Yeah, there's only so much lexicalizing that can be done to reality, because reality is kind of irreducible.
As close as language will allow.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something of a human tendency to even make up words for the fuzzy concepts, and once you have gotten a hold on the fuzzy concept, it seems like that the person who made that word a long time ago had some kind of feeling, and they were trying to phrase it, and then they gave up and just named it something, like moe, for example.
Yeah, right.
Because language is all arbitrary, and it's just associations.
We can just take something and name it.
Yep.
Yeah. All the weird foreign words that philosophy uses, which are, in most cases, puns that only work in one language. But the concept of it is only really sensible in that one language. So you can't even translate it. You just have to put foreign words in there. Jesus Christ, I cut out again. What the fuck is this? Oh god, why does this keep happening? I hate this.
What's happening?
Alright, I'm back. I was gone again.
Okay.
We could hear you that time.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's why people are talking over each other a lot this episode.
Yeah, just there's pockets of void just floating around.
All right. Do we want to do egg theory, or do we have more material for this one?
I'm done, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
This
so
is my favorite time cake post.
When this time cake post dropped, or maybe not when it dropped exactly, but somewhere around then, I was in the Trixie's Coven server, and Trixie, Ben, and Give and Take were all talking about this image, and we're like trying to decode what the fuck it means, and I'm like, well, and so my notes for this episode, for this post in this episode, are just everything that I said to them. That's why it's so long.
It's kind of like weird to me that like every time I hear about her, like even doing anything related to neurotyping, it's strange to me.
Like, to find out that she even still cares about this.
Yeah.
Call forward for the next episode, but she wants to be on the next episode of the Neurotypeline, and she has not seen or consumed any other neurotyping content besides like 1 or 2 posts, and so she wants to discuss our observations with her, like what we've learned. So that'll be our notes for the next episode, is trying to tally up what we've learned over these past 13.
Yeah, so just comparing notes.
Yeah. All right.
That'll be cool.
I will attempt to describe a time cake post, I suppose.
Yeah. This is the easiest one to get. It's just like, as usual, there's a lot to break down.
It has a clearer flow to it. All right. The overall structure is to be had in the top right corner, which is like the chart is divided into abstracted and embedded. So in the compute quadrant, you have abstracted from the abstracted. In the and then in the abstract quadrant, you have embedded in the abstracted. And then in the order quadrant, you have abstracted from the embedded. And then you have embedded in the instinct quadrant. The language got a little hairy there. Look at the screen, you nerd.
There's multiple things the word abstract means.
Yeah. All right.
So in this case, it means
we'll
like
get to that with the axis description.
something abstract, like a number, basically. An idea.
The rows are listed from top to bottom as the significance landscape, the depth landscape. Told you I'm deep, you guys. The presence landscape. I'm also going to take credit for that one because I have magnificent presence. The salience landscape at the bottom, all the way at linear. Then the rows from green to red are propositional knowledge in the all the way categorical, then procedural knowledge, then perspectival knowledge, then participatory knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So I am perspective and depth. Overseer.
There's also
I feel like
the descriptions of the different landscapes also.
There's
I guess the terms don't say you much, so tell you much, so we should probably read those also.
Yeah. Significance landscape. Symbolic algebra of meaning, which yields vision through illusion and into reality. That's hot. Turning in, like, that sounds really cool and everything. And it sounds like something you should read over, like, a lo-fi beat, like in an Alan Watts voice.
I'm trying to figure out what it means.
Good luck pulling any meaning out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, I get it.
You get it. Good.
Read too much time cake or something.
Yeah, we have all been ruined by reading too much time cake over the past several months. You show this to a normal person and they're like, what is this moon speak?
Yeah, I'm the normal person in this particular call, and I'm like,
I don't
what
know,
the fuck is all
symbolic
Yeah,
algebra? I don't know.
Timecake has a real knack for portraying ideas in a way that feels like some arcane knowledge. The little diagrams here, everything. This feels like something you should read in like a book on occultism or something.
So this may be controversial, hopefully, but I feel like this is the most understandable Timecake post.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, this is the first time I've looked at one and even been able
Wait,
to
we gotta finish those
parse
descriptions.
anything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The
Oh, yeah.
landscape
Okay,
ones.
so getting back to the level of the world currently being related to and the degree of arenic abstraction. You're just flexing, dude. In the depth landscape, a causal topology which links correlations in the arena into relations of actualization. How many words with the same suffix can you cram into the same sentence?
God.
In the presence landscape, network of affordances between the agent and the arena, which allow a certain set of realized interactions. And then down in the salience landscape, way at the bottom, you have a set of features and aspects made intelligible by consciousness.
That's the most understandable sentence out of all of them.
Yes.
So the word afford, that's like pretty much I think straight from John Vervaeke. He uses that a lot.
Yeah.
I don't quite comprehend using the word afford in that way, so it's a little confusing for me. Network of affordances, it's kind of
Yeah, what does that mean?
like, I think I get it enough, but
yeah,
it's
so
kind of
something-
weird.
It's like a game design thing. I'm just gonna tell you that. Like, fuck if I'm
It's
actually correct here, but I choose to believe that it is a game
It's-
design thing.
Essentially, things which are made available to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, a vertical bar means pull and a horizontal bar means push. That is a design affordance on doors in a civilized society where they don't use horizontal bars for everything. Fuck you. Those are design affordances.
It means you can afford things.
You could also call it conveyance. This game has good conveyance.
One thing from your notes, Starbuck, I think is useful here too. The word arena, how you said it's basically just whatever the topic at hand is, or whatever you're thinking about.
I haven't read my notes on this
Oh.
in like 5 months.
We still also need to do the current utilized way of knowing.
Okay, so I'm going to live up to one of my titles and blast through the rest of it. So, top left corner, you have the symbol as that which points to, participates in, and exemplifies. See the first discussions, Symbols and Zombies by John Vervaeke. Then, down in the corner, like labeling the two axes of salience, landscape, and propositional knowledge, I think that's what it's pointing to, is the landscapes model from Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, episode 10. Each of these are like an hour long at least. And Modes of Knowing from My Best Recent Talk by John Vervaeke. Okay. Going back to propositional knowledge. Here's where we get the fun diagrams with eyeballs and eggs. All right.
And
These are
robot
the-
arms.
These are all the currently utilized ways of knowing. In the propositional knowledge, you have a domain of justification. You have an agent who is gazing at the world, like an agent and an arena in the world, and the agent is gazing at the arena. You are knowing that. This is a disembedded observation. Maybe that switched, ? With an agent who is touching the arena, knowing how, or procedural knowledge. This is disembedded manipulation. Ooh, I'm wiggling my fingers into the microphone. Perspectival knowledge. The agent is within the arena and looking out, both at the arena and at the world. This is knowing what it's like, or embedded observation.
Basically, my opinion.
My opinion. Yes. And then you have participatory knowledge. the agent has become a dotted line and is touching the arena from the inside, just sort of waving your hands about, like I am in circles. I'm a penguin now. You didn't see anything. This is knowledge by being, or embedded manipulation.
You're all the way in the yoke.
I am all the way in the yoked. I am yoked. I am folked. This is my locus of the yocus. You are conscious by being conscious. Out here in the domain of behavioral investment. The agent manipulates itself since it is embedded in the arena which it is manipulating. Hence the dotted lines. As this goes from categorical to impressionistic, the degree of embeddedness of the agent in the world, agentic abstraction, is inverted. No discontinuity when the agent enters the world. It is continuous because even as the agent frames itself as separate from the world, it is always within the world, whether the agent realizes it or not. Let's see, there's a little box in the bottom left corner that says lexical impressionist is agentic abstraction, and linear lateral is agenic abstraction. Agentic and an arenic.
Arenic.
Arenic. Yeah.
Arenic. Abstract means drawn apart in this case. Like it just says abstract : drawn apart. Each neurotype corresponds to a particular constellation of worldly separation. That's a fucking lot.
Yeah. It's a lot of like words, but like once you digest those, it's pretty easy. Like it's it's as simple as zone theory, basically.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's easier if you're looking at it.
I think one thing that's useful in understanding this, at least it was for me, is the idea that like animals are pure instinct or babies are pure instinct, and then you go out from there. So if you start with embedded in the embedded, the bottom right corner, that's like, then you can kind of understand what abstracted means, which is basically like, Yeah.
Hey, I just like any chart that calls me, that tells me that I have a deep perspective.
Yeah, well, mine is significant, so I got you beat there.
Mine is also significant.
I'm coming at you from the future to express my huge disappointment that we did not make a depth perspective joke here.
Wow.
All right, so I'm going to actually blast read through the notes, the things that I said to Trixie and Ben and Gib. Ben was kind of incredulously rolling his eyes. Gib was distantly confused, and Trixie was only participating a little bit.
Keep in mind, this was before the beef between Trixie and Ben.
Yes,
and Ben at the time said that neurotyping was the worst thing Beatrice has ever brought up on the PCP.
He doesn't like cool things.
Both of these are true and concurrent with one another. All right. See, a part of me deep down wants to say that it makes perfect sense, but deep down that I know that I've been ruined by Timecake's jargon. The linear side is actually the closest to actual reality in small scale and present. As it gets more lateral, the emphasis is put on how different parts of the world relate to each other until there is nothing but symbols interacting with symbols. The lexical side is like a statement of facts, and it gets more and more practical as it goes impressionistic. The categorical is, I know what I am because I know it. The Presci is, I know what I am because I am it. Arena here is just a buzzword that means whatever subject you're thinking about. Quadrants thing on the right is how you see the thing and how you relate to it. In the top right quadrant, embedded in the abstracted means you participate directly in the experience. You are embedded. In the things that are symbolized and elemental, they are abstracted. The bottom left quadrant is navigating by rules and statements. You are abstracted. Through the direct world of immediate experience, it is embedded. The eggs at the bottom are how different steps to knowing to doing axis goes. Left to right, I see you, it you. I do stuff, it you. I feel you, it you. I do stuff, it me. That's how I read this post.
All right.
Nice.
Again, since
fun.
we have like one of each of us in like filling out the The abstract quadrant. I think that's pretty handy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abstract gang. That's
Or
our
should
team
I
name
say
now.
embedded abstract gang.
Embedded abstract gang.
Embagstract.
What?
Abstredded.
Abstredded eggs.
Straighted.
Eggy weg. Yeah. Somebody else say something. I've been talking for a while.
All right.
Ouro, give us your deep knowledge.
One of the things that this makes me think about with the little... Okay, I have two thoughts on the tactile versus observational agencies that we have along the lexical impressionist axis, which sort of switch first seeing the arena, then touching the... Let's just say touching. Touching the arena, then seeing the arena from the inside, then touching from the inside, or being the arena yourself, being part of the arena. Because sort of seeing the arena from the inside, knowing what it's like, this embedded observation, kind of makes me think of... we had this clairvoyance post about the clear-sighted. And this kind of makes me think about clairvoyance, or this underlying insight as a general theme along the purple column. Timecake also points out that two of the standard names in this column make note of vision/perspective. And especially in anime, like fascinator types are often sort of people of strange wisdom, which is imparted on not to other people. So I guess mainly the column differs in how this, not how this knowledge is gathered, but kind of how it's used and weaponized.
Maybe even where the
almost,
focus is
sort of
oriented.
Yeah, so purple column's like a zone of seers.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yes.
Okay, I'm curious, what exactly what is your interpretation of what salience landscape means? Referring to the most linear row?
Essentially just perceiving the world of things and objects as they are.
Okay.
Yeah, like what's immediately obvious and workable.
Okay, so you're talking, so it's like material reality on one end, and then significance, like like the meaning of those things. Okay.
Connections, then connections of connections, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And another thing that this made me think about is the Bhu post again. The one about our little wormhole theory of squares that connect. Because here, on the linear lateral axis, on the impressionistic impressionist lexical axis, we can see exactly this pattern that Bhu describes. Like we have a seeing and observation in the green column, and then that returns 2 columns to the side, and same for the tactile. This connects exactly the way that Bhu predicted across these. So I think that if you take an observational aspect approach to the arena from the outside, when you try to interact with the arena from the inside, you might also take this observational approach. So that would mandate Bhu shifting. I will call Bhu shifting along the implex axis. And my little pet theory is that this might be exactly the sort of pattern that Bhu picked up on, and expanded it, maybe falsely, I don't know, upon both axes. Like, here we have these jumps, we have these concrete zones that mirror 2 columns to the right/left. It's probably also true for linear lateral. And then thinking more about it, I thought, maybe it actually does, because when Timecake describes the depth landscape as causal topology, which links correlations in the area onto relations of actualization, this takes this topological approach, again, like a sort of plane you interact with, and that seems kind of the features of a world of things and objects again, but now objects on different plane. And then the significance is just one level up from that, the connections on the plane of topology, as opposed to presence landscape, which is the connections on top of the plane of objects and things. So here again, we might have this 2 jump upwards or downwards. So this kind of maps really surprisingly well onto Bhu's theory.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Wormhole Theory, I gotta say, is a much cooler name than what I had been calling it, which is the Tarbuck Slide.
No, the Tarbuck Slide is only overseer to contemplative, and that's it. Well, actually, it sounds like a dance move.
Yeah, but for this to work, it has to be. Yeah, I guess I disagree with Urcoy on this, because Koi is of the opinion that the first 2 Ion Arena diagrams should be switched. I don't, first of all, to facilitate this pattern, which I just talked about. And secondly, because I think it makes just people who are close to each other on the chart, but in different neurotypes, but just at the border of them, it makes this shift sort of more continuous. Because I think that if you wanted to shift from, let's say, understanding to externalist, 2 people there, you might have this tactile approach to the arena when you think of yourself as outside it, and a visual observational approach to the arena as inside it, and one can decrease while the other increases. Well, I think it's, as you go along there, I think it's far harder to have simultaneously a tactile approach to the arena as outside and as inside it. I think it's way easier if you always one of the tactility or observation decreases while the other increases in this sort of sine wave pattern.
But what if I want to touch everything?
Yeah.
And something that's coming to mind here is the crossover point between the 2 middle ones, the disembedded manipulation and then the embedded observation. If you think about it, disembedded manipulation is embedded. There's a connection, it's actually continuous, even though it seems like a leapfrogging to go from observation to manipulation, observation, manipulation. I think the 2 middle ones are actually more connected, because disembedded manipulation is a more direct, it's like a more hands-on kind of outside observation, which feels like a step away from a more passive subjective experience or embedded observation, if that makes any sense.
Now that all of these have been explained, I don't actually think those 2 are switched. Those I think I like that pattern that is here. So
my brain is melted.
I love that your one note is Timecake posts make me feel dumb, but I like this one.
Yes. Yes.
I like.
And when I understand them, I feel smart, and I still like them.
Also, and this might be accidental, but I like that in these images, the agent, even if it interacts with the world through its little grippy arm things, is still an eyeball.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me of a thing that Jill... I swear we'll stop bringing up Gilles Deleuze so often, but he talks about that the eye isn't purely a visual organ. The eye is technically also a tactile organ, both in the sense that you can technically touch things with your eye and you will feel them. Don't do that. But also that there is such a thing as tactile seeing. Observation or seeing proper is kind of when you take in a picture with a lot of stuff and you process it. You see a room, you take in all that is in there. Whereas tactile seeing is kind of what you often do with visual illusions and such, stuff that is kind of hard to process. So you sort of slowly trace your eye across it, trying to follow the line. It's more of a tapping and feeling along a surface rather than a looking at the whole thing and taking it in. It very much feel like touching along the surface of it, and that's tactile seeing, and I think that's kind of implied by this image, to me at least.
Yeah. There's also like, you could also think of it as there's seeing as in the image you're constructing and observing in your mind, and tactile as the literal like light, like going into your eyes and bouncing off. And
I was gonna say light is also literally physical, like the light is literally touching you.
it's a physical process.
So every organ
touching.
is tactile.
It's touching. Is this how the plot of Wonder Woman 1984 resolved?
What?
I didn't watch
Someone out there is going to get that joke.
Okay.
Please laugh.
Please.
If you are that person, let us know, I guess.
Let us know that you laughed. Just do a
really-
timestamp and say I lolled.
Really dumb plot setup for how the wishing stone made into a person can touch everyone on Earth by projectors. Whatever.
All right.
I just wanted to highlight a comment in the Reddit by the Bacon Spaceman.
Oh yeah.
That's like, okay, Jordan Peterson. And then as soon as I took a step back, I realized that it's the map of meaning. One of the maps of meaning.
No.
Yeah.
But like not bad.
Right. But I can totally see how somebody who isn't willing to wade through it would get Jordan Peterson vibes off of this. But I have to say that Jordan Peterson is 10 times more full of shit than Timecake is. Timecake is a better Jordan Peterson. So am I. That's why they call me the leftist Jordan Peterson. I'm not kidding. That is what people call me.
He is, and at the same time, even Jordan Peterson has some pretty interesting ideas. People forget that over his political takes.
Yes and no.
I mean, he has some interesting ideas. Whether they are accurate to life ideas, I dispute.
We'll kind of get a little to narratology later, but I think
Yes.
Jordan Peterson has some pretty interesting ideas on that. Okay.
What even
This is where we get back to my Joseph Campbell hating, which translates into Jung hating, which translates into Jordan Peterson hating.
Yeah.
It's all connected.
Everything's connected.
It is all one.
Yeah, I'm through with my notes, I think.
Yeah,
I think we got that.
Good there.
Yeah. So if you don't care about any of that, just use the columns for cool stuff. Cool results.
I have one more, which is relation to Hecate, but the more I think about that, the more that is probably wrong. Hecate is this idea of what constitutes thingness. Like when you look at something, what is it that makes you think of it as like a specific object? Like what is, when I say this thing, what all is loaded in that? What is the difference between this thing and the category of things it belongs to? What makes something specific, kind of? And I thought how that related to this being part of the world or whatever, how much self is always implied in Hecateal assertions, but I'm not getting anywhere with that, so it's just in there as a note. I thought I'd bring it up. If you have, I guess, Timecake, if you're listening to this, tell me what you think of that, or if there's anything to that.
Dear listener, if you are very, very smart, you can take that.
Or if you're not smart, but you're just well-educated, you might be a well-educated dumbass, but maybe you'll have an interesting insight anyway. Dumbasses are still kind of useful.
Yeah. I mean, it really doesn't matter. If you don't know shit or know anything, just if you think you have an interesting thought, then let's just say it. It might be right.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Being stupid doesn't preclude you from being accidentally completely on the mark.
Again, that's what I do.
That's the cool thing about philosophy. It requires no credentials to enter, but I will beat up on you if you are wrong in front of me.
Philosophy and metaphysics.
Yeah. Do we want to do the next Urcoy post now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I need to go to the bathroom, so I will be and get some more water.
Okay.
So
I'll
be
just
back.
go through an explanation, I guess.
BRB.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So here we have the asshole chart. So there's this idea I had where different ways people on the chart are like mean. It kind of comes across differently depending on your lexical impressionist axis because of the way that you communicate the kinds of ways you can be mean. Like you have different types of things that you access. So yeah, I was basically using different words to try and map that out. So on the most lexical, we have crass in the green column, dickish in the blue, edgy in the purple, which I don't like. I want to replace that with something else, but I don't know what. And then red is abrasive. And then I also colored each row, like did crazy stuff just because like I don't want to have a boring chart, but it doesn't actually mean anything. Just fill that in with whatever you want. Yeah.
I mean, I think they fit. I can't say why, but looks right.
So I'm like 2 parts and to 1 part at.
yeah. There's symbols on the side. So I'm like double asterisk.
I find it very interesting because you're one of the least abrasive people I have ever talked to.
Yeah, you're pretty chill. Well, I guess you're not mean where we can see you.
Yeah, right, he's just not an asshole.
Yeah, well, actually, you could think of like the opposite of all these, maybe. Like, what's the opposite of abrasive? Soft and squishy.
Adhesive.
Yeah, abrasive, adhesive, crass.
No,
Smooth?
I know what the opposite of abrasive is. Lubricating. Instead
I
of being a
lubricate the room.
scratchy, hard substance, you're a slippery, wet substance that, instead of removing things, adds things. There you go. Shoot your goo. That's what you do.
Shoot your goo? What the fuck?
Perfect
Yeah, that's what I was
timing.
thinking of adhesive also, because instead of taking stuff off, you glue things on. You can glue skin flakes to
Okay.
your
What
Oh
Yeah.
god, what did I come back to?
The opposite of the edge would be like the cheeks.
The edge isn't even...
Rounded cheeks. I'm a cheek pincher. That's what I am. There you go. Opposite of dickish. You're a huge pussy. Opposite of crass. You are mow that crass.
Smooth.
I mean, the opposite of edgy might also be a centrist.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Not even in the center. Wait, maybe edgy should go right down the middle or something.
I think edgy fits.
Well, I think
Decently
it
well.
fits the column. I don't think it fits the pattern. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah.
usually
Also-
describe somebody when they're mean. I don't say, oh, they're so edgy. Like, that's not the same as saying they're so
I
abrasive.
do that. Fuck Igak for saying edgy is the least bad thing of these. Edgy is the worst of these.
Yeah.
Here, this is
Right.
me. This and Shadow the Hedgehog, that's me. I am all edge.
How do you cut that? Just straight downward slice, poke.
Yeah, just use a
Flat thing.
spatula. We need to put that on screen now because we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
What if the spatula's the wrong size? You
Tough
bought the
luck,
wrong
buddy.
spatula.
Otherwise, you get like trapezoid shaped ones.
The brownies trapezoid.
Also,
Now I want a trapezoid shaped brownie slice.
And that's how you trapezoid.
That's how you
I mean,
trapezoid.
also look at the picture of the weird brownie shape on screen, I guess, but also at the Urcoy's post, because the patterns on it are very nice, and also I think relate to the types nicely. I really like the grain in general, like
I
on the red
love
column.
looking at this post.
Very pleasing.
Shout out to Roman who mentioned this last episode.
Yeah.
And his comment here also, the pure instinct makes me feel gross.
It is way more extreme than most of the other ones.
Okay.
Just
so
like Donald Trump.
I do have I, I do have a suggestion to replace edgy, which is like sarcastic or ironic. Not that other people can't also be that, but like
There you
how
go.
are you the most? As the neurotranscendent, I put aside sarcasm in favor of sincerity. And directly telling people things. But this is definitely something that I used to do a lot. It is the common tongue of people who are like I was.
I don't know.
Also, maybe condescending.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Sarcastic seems like just a prefix you could add on before saying
Yeah,
somebody's an asshole.
Less of a.
I do think condescending is more. I understand what edgy is going for, but like, yeah, it does feel like it can be applied in ways that are not that don't fit the pattern.
How about bitchy?
Oh, bitchy.
There you go.
Edgy.
Yeah.
That's good.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Now he's got it.
I'm pretty bitchy. That's true.
I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck my square is.
Yeah, it's
It's pushing into the.
Yeah, I took
New
like on the
types
whole image, or just on that thing. I did like a bendy thing,
Stretch.
so it's like it's not sticking to the boxes at all.
Just looking at it makes me feel seasick.
I
Perfect.
got sea legs.
Didn't I say what now?
When you were younger, didn't you say you were like a huge bitch or something?
Yes, I did. I very specifically said I was a huge bitch.
Picture of Vriska edited to look like Tarbuck on screen.
Sure.
I do think I'm great.
Tarbuck did nothing wrong. Tarbuck did nothing wrong.
Tarbuck circuit.
I mean, from what he tells, he did do something wrong, but I have to edit him on Vriska, so. No, he
Take
didn't.
Tarbuck crosscut.
Take the C out of Tarbuck and it's a valid troll name. There you go.
Tarbuck did nothing wrong at the time.
Somebody, Simid did a troll version of me. I'm gonna find the image for it and put it up.
Oh boy.
Like it's got
That's
a
exciting.
good set of quirks and stuff. For instance, always using the crossed T.
That's cool.
People who care about Homestuck will care about that.
You better start caring about Homestuck.
You're in one.
That is.
Hey, welcome to the pandemic. Better start caring about Homestuck. You are.
Look out the window. What's that in the sky? It's a fucking meteor. You've got 5 minutes.
5 minutes to accept that you are Homestuck.
Yeah, so I guess when I'm in asshole mode, I think abrasive fits. I think that's fine. You get back to
Yeah,
the
like
chat.
when you're yelling, "Eat the cracker, fuck you."
as I so often do.
Just shoving crackers in people's mouths.
So what's the midpoint between, or like what's the combination of percentage and asterisk? I
don't know. I just put these here, whatever I was feeling at the time, just for decoration.
Some
For,
sort of incomprehensible symbol.
For indicators, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to it. I do kind of like money, the money and exclamation point at the bottom.
Yeah.
Seems right. And I guess percentage and asterisk, because those seem most related to like information. And then the at and could because Twitter. And then hashtag and maybe I should have put the hashtag where the and was. I don't know.
No, I like the and. I want to keep the
Don't
and.
think about it.
And then you have the hash and the power symbol. I guess those are related enough. I'm just trying to come up with something because that's what this show is all about, is coming up with
This
some
episode's
bullshit.
going to be so long.
Oh, yeah.
I did call at the top.
It's the time at already an hour and a half.
Yes. Sorry, everybody, for making this the longest episode ever. No, probably. I'm not. Actually, I shouldn't
even
take
close.
No,
responsibility.
it was pretty much just the combination of posts.
You know you
Yeah.
love that shit, man. All right. Anything more on this? Besides
done.
purple is bitch.
Purple is bitch. Ridge.
Oh yes, now we have the Think Ridge.
All right, yeah. Theory on intelligence.
I don't care about
the
this. I want
Ridge.
the thou cliff from Roman.
Again, by Cooler Kid, 1692.
Cooler kid. Cooler than who?
Cooler than you.
Cooler than you. Yeah.
You probably, you think you're cooler than me. Yeah, it was like, hey,
Warning, possibly
I hate that song.
incomprehensible. Well,
always these internet dwellers with their cooler than thou attitude. What this post goes into is how essentially instincts are biological programming, a very set amount of rules and associated behavior to certain stimuli, and therefore lexical. Because you just follow the rule set, essentially. That's all it pretty much says. And that it's therefore weird to him that intuition and impulse are seen as something impressionistic.
Yeah,
And,
go ahead.
Yeah, describes bacteria as sort of biological computer programs only doing one thing the entire time, replicate process, etc., etc.
that is kind of cool idea.
I have a criticism of that, but yeah, say what you want to say.
Say what you need to say.
Yeah, I think what this is kind of describing is like to use like the two different kinds of lexicality being like one is for creatures that don't really have the capacity to adapt, being just genetic hard coding of behavior, and then there's behavioral hard coding, which is kind of over time entrenched by circumstances. Actually, no, that was a bad description. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought, fell off the tracks halfway through.
That's
We have
fine.
two X's. We have lexical,
There is-
impressionistic, and less intelligent, aka linear. Nice.
Excellent.
The neuro chart fits in around here somewhere.
Like, my kind of issue with that is that function is environment dependent. So if you have a certain thing that always follows a certain program, always does the kind of same thing, then the effect it has is still different depending on its environment. Like if you have let's say a mechanism that adjusts the environment to a certain temperature, then you have it in a cold climate, it'll make things warmer. If you have it in a cool climate, it will make things warmer, even though only one thing it does. That's a bad example, because it's, again, machinic, but you kind of get what you mean. And environments shift, like bacteria will not always be in the same place. First of all, they proliferate, and also environment changes in a way that a computer or a computer program is always kind of in the same framework. You rarely allow them to edit the framework in which they themselves exist, because that is a really bad idea and a good way to break your computer.
Yeah.
Or make an AI that will kill you by allowing it to edit its own programming. Both of which, don't do that. So that's kind of why the computer bacteria thing doesn't work, because environment is, well, not even environment is self-referential, but organisms are self-referential. Like organisms, through existing in it, change their environment, and then they have to adapt to the new environment, in fact doing something new to the environment, and that's again an environment they will have to adapt to, and so on. Like, take the feral pigeon. You've all seen them around cities if you live in a city. Tons of fucking pigeons. They weren't always there. Ancient cities did not have tons of fucking pigeons, because pigeons weren't a thing. We took some rock doves and we domesticated them into what pigeons are now, and then we just kind of let them roam about, because pigeons would just kind of escape, do their own things. All the pigeons we have nowadays, all the feral pigeons, are descendants of these things that we've created. Because rock doves, you will have noticed, don't live in cities. They don't eat trash in cities. That's not their natural programming. But it is the natural programming of feral pigeons, which we created through our natural programming, which made us domesticate rock doves. And now, our natural programming will probably change in relation to the feral pigeons which now exist in our cities, and so on. Environment is self-referential through organisms.
Yeah, I got most of that.
Yeah, and also most thinking is just a justification of intuitions we had earlier. So being like, oh, it's more complex. It's rarely more complex. There's a number of tests done on that. Most thinking is just re-explaining pre-held beliefs.
Also, I just had an insight while we were talking about this. I wonder if some of the confusion with stuff like this is that people are mistaking lexicality for lexemes and impression. So, like, people are taking lexical people and interpreting them the way you would interpret a lexeme, which is a structured kind of self-contained concept or thing that has no, like, it has defined borders, and they're taking that and then making that assumption about lexical people who create lexemes for different things. Like, there isn't, it's not the same thing.
It's mistaking the carpenter for the tool, and I would know. I use tools all the time, and I also am a huge tool. Let me use a tool.
I just want to say, what you gotta say, I'm a carpenter and a tool.
I'm a carpenter and a tool.
I'm upset you thought of the tool joke before me, but it's just too late.
Tim, the tool man Taylor.
T, the tool man Tarbuck.
Tarbuck, the tool man.
Tarbuck, the tool man Transom, yep.
There you go.
Okay, so for the insect part of this, like, I know we just established that carpenter, not tool, but, and I hate to beat up on the order quadrant again, but I picture them as an insect banging into a pane of glass over and over again.
Right, they're getting into like logic loops, and there's other things you can do with them too. Like there was an example where there was like a wasp, like it's digging its hole in the ground, and then you could distract it, get it away, and then like mess up the hole, and then it comes back and it just does it again, and you can keep distracting it over and over and messing up its hole that it is trying to make.
Yep.
I do kind of like the idea of insects being like hyperlexical. It's kind of funny to me. I don't know if
it is
true,
a funny image, but I think it's just a different idea of lexical than the Beatrice one.
Yeah. It's not actually, it's not,
Because being
it's more like linearity. It's more like a bad interpretation of linearity than lexicality, I think.
Yeah. Being closer to primal reality would be being more impressionistic, according to the way B thinks about it. Not that she is necessarily like the end-all, be-all super god of neurotyping. That's me.
So many letter B and insect B jokes in there. There's just bees flying all over the screen.
Yeah, there's an edit of Beatrice as a bee just now. Yeah.
Bees.
Yeah. Apparently, a note I took while writing this rant about pigeons is thinking will inevitably cause pigeons, and it only gets worse from there.
Yes, I really like that one.
Will inevitably cause pigeons, and it only gets worse from there.
I don't really know what to say about my notes. I was kind of just doing jokes. Genetic programming is lexicality. Open-ended problem solving is impressionism.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cooler Kid and Timecake later talk about this post because Timecake makes some of the same criticisms we have just made of it. And Cooler Kid says that, he thinks that perception is more a component of it. Like, the problem isn't just that people operate on sort of primal programming, because that will always be the case, but more that lexical thinkers perceive the world as very, very concrete sets of things which this can be applied to, instead of just a vague sort of thing, and perceiving their instincts and positions as sort of hunches, instead going like, oh, this is this precise problem which I can tackle this way, which I think is a more defensible stance, but also just kind of makes Lexi sound stupid.
I mean, one of the original purposes behind neurotyping was to glorify the impressionist. So,
yes,
glorify me. It's a cool looking diagram, but I don't know. It doesn't quite hit for me because of the problems that I've already talked about. I mean, there's other stuff to talk about in the giant text, but I think the real meat of this post is the picture. You might as well have just posted the picture and like a 1 paragraph summary.
What you should look at instead is this image here. The Roman romantic edit.
Yes. I think this is I have seen this.
Guys, Dwayne the literal Rock Johnson.
That was what the...
Yes.
Less intelligent. I like that.
All right. Next
An
post.
Archie69, memory and neurotypes.
I kind of like this.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, he's saying that he has kind of a disconnect with his memories because his memories feel more impressionistic to him than his active thoughts, and they don't quite seem like the same person or someone they could put in the same neurotype as themselves.
That's interesting because as an impressionistic person, my memories feel more lexical, but my day-to-day experience is more impressionistic. So maybe your root type is whatever you know, like where you would land, because you are experiencing you right now. But it would be different if you looked at yourself in your memories, because your memories are they highlight the part that's different from you, I guess.
I don't think that's true. My memories are pretty like 1-to-1 like visual.
Oh, maybe this is because I'm a purple column and you're a red column. Maybe that's what's happening.
Maybe is there like another like every other column like pattern again?
Oh no.
Yeah, mine feel maybe a bit more linear, but there's not much of a difference. An idea I had while reading this is that memory is altered as you recall it to retain what's useful to you, that which you have to recall often, which are more likely to be the big, vague patterns than the details of it, I would assume. So my theory was just that probably memory feels more impressionistic for everyone, because you don't really have to remember the numbers and the building blocks, just the general feeling of it. Mostly, when you think back on something, I would assume that that's what you most enforce in the memory, because again, memory is continually edited.
Yeah, memory is continually edited. It is a photocopy of a photocopy.
Yep. And this ties back into everyone starts as a pure instinct. So maybe memory works, it leans in a pure instinct direction for everyone.
Well, it doesn't for me, though, and that's the thing that I'm finding weird about all of this. Maybe I'm just an outlier as the chart transcendent.
What are your memories look like exactly?
Well, they do look like my experiences. At least I think so. But I feel like I'm highlighting important details, which is how I conceive of things as being categorical. Like if I have to imagine what a categorical person thinks, then that's it. Is like highlighting important details. And
right.
Because that would be my first step towards categorizing something.
Yeah. I do wonder maybe I do say mine is visual and just kind of like a 1-to-1, but I wonder if that's very heavy categorization, like this exact thing happened and this thing looked exactly like that and was like this.
Maybe.
Not sure.
I think it's really funny that we had Ouro and I had opposite conclusions here, because my notes say experiencing self versus remembering self. I think that's maybe more of a linear lateral thing, perhaps, but if categorical was more memory and impressionist was more experiencing, it wouldn't surprise me, because I feel like the impressionist is more open to putting greater weight on their experiencing self, that is, doing things in the present rather than the remembering self. Like, I don't take pictures of stuff that I do if I go to some place. I might have a souvenir or something like that, but I want to just be there and
right.
do being there.
I mean, I probably wouldn't take many pictures.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, I rarely take pictures of things.
I lean on pictures a lot to kind of reestablish sort of the core aspects of memories in a way. Like it kind of supports almost the emotional, which is probably why a lot of people take pictures, you know, for the memories, for the emotional
Thoughtscaping.
thoughtscaping. I don't really know what to make of all this because it's very hard for me to parse like what the difference is for me. I almost feel like I might have been more impressionistic, or either that or my brain just naturally scatters my memories over time. But either way, it feels like they feel very, I don't know. My memory feels more new type-ish than my current experience or my current way of interpreting things.
Maybe this is because I like split type a lot. Like, I don't bring it up often much anymore, but I do have one foot in the quick-witted.
Right.
Maybe that's what it is. I'm grasping at straws here, trying to justify the thing I said.
Yeah, maybe there's no relation at all. Maybe different people recall different things from their memories more often, and it just, depending on what you do with, depending on how you use your memory, it will kind of shift in your type, or maybe it won't. Maybe there is no pattern.
Yeah.
Maybe the pattern is just that your experiencing self and your remembering self can be separate, but you still have the, like, whatever the chances of rolling two numbers at once is, of being the same type as yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe you can be the same type as yourself. That's an episode title right there.
Or maybe you could have literally just shifted in your type over your life, and that's why your remembrance is different or feels different to you.
That's what I was.
It's also possible.
That's what I was kind of wondering about.
A lot of ways this could go.
I personally find that unlikely, but more data is required, I guess, because like I'm just comparing it myself to my recent memories. And being that I'm old now, my recent memories, the things that I consider my recent memories, are like a 7-year span. That's recent to me. Maybe it's also partly something that varies across age, and since most people who care about neurotyping are young, then it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Maybe being younger, it's like you can kind of afford to have more like fuzzy memories like that, where you're not picking out the important parts. Like you can just have more like a larger snapshot amalgamation type thing.
Neurotheorists, get on it. Expand this territory that we have discovered.
Memory.
I mean, this guy has discovered. Wait, what was his name? An Archie69. Yeah, interesting question to bring up.
Yeah, I'm also willing to acknowledge that I might just be an outlier here, as I am exceptional in many ways.
That's Prince behavior right there.
Are we ready to do the long post by Scroy? Oh god,
yes.
It's so
Long
fucking
guy.
long.
Scroll, chart looping heat maps and other quote-unquote movements around the chart. Luckily, a lot of this is just restating stuff we've talked about earlier.
Yeah.
With chart looping, heat maps, we've done that.
Right. There's an accompanying image. We should talk about that, because that's a pretty good rundown.
Yeah,
yes.
Where is that?
It's at the top.
Scroll.
Click it. Click the link in the top.
Oh, there
Supplementary
it is.
image
Supplementary
/ yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Loopers, movers, pendulums, movers, loopers. All right. And then overflowers at the top. That makes sense now.
Overflowers.
Overflowers.
Overflowers. Yes.
I was going to make that joke. I failed.
I'm gonna overflow. Have you seen FLCL?
Yes,
Remember
that's the
show?
only thing that I've been able to think of every time I
Did
see
you just
overflow.
call it? You just called it FLCL. I can't believe you.
Fully coolly then.
Focal. It should be called focal, right? Am I doing it right?
Am I doing it right? All right. Anyways, so the chart is like split up a little bit differently here, where on the left and right it's just like two squares, like more of a sliver, and those are the loopers, where you supposedly just switch to the other side in different situations.
So those would be the two, like the lexical half and the impressionist half of the mid types on the edges.
The edge types, yeah.
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 So like
Well, the whole
most
edge.
so the most lexical edges of technician and actually no, it's
edge.
the whole edge. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
The colors are throwing me off.
And then you have like a square in there for just movers, like closer to the center, where you just kind of move around because you're fairly balanced. But then in the middle, you have pendulums. So it's kind of like you pick and choose one, and you kind of swing around. So it's like loopers, but not so abrupt, I guess. It just kind of swings around.
And also just not as drastic.
Yeah. And then at the top, we have overflowers, like at the very top edge of the chart, where you kind of go, there's so much going on that it kind of like pops, and then there's like nothing, like fries your system.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that Scroy believes in overflowing into linearity, but not in underflowing into laterality.
Well, I don't know what that looks like in a practical
Yeah, that was
sense.
his point. Is it doesn't? There isn't like how do you get from linear to top lat?
Like in the way that you described it in your post, like in an
Yeah.
abstract way, it makes sense, but like what? It's abstract. It doesn't translate into the real life or that we've seen. Like, what does that look like actually?
I mean, again, neither for overflowing do I believe that actually works in real life.
I disagree.
I don't know. Like that happens to me. I feel like.
Yeah, it does happen to me too.
Like there's just so much going on where it just fries, and then like you just have to chill and not think about anything for a while.
My experience is that it's kind of a stress thing.
If it is a
Hey.
stress thing, maybe that implies it's just everywhere.
Could be.
Hey, overflowers, have you tried rebooting your laterality? That's what it is, right?
We already called an episode that. Yes.
Oh, I didn't hear the reference, so.
Have you tried rebooting your laterality?
Yeah, I know the reference, but
Oh, okay.
this was what the reference.
I definitely think that the community says Lexeme exclusively because B said it that one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Lexeme in this post. All right, so some hot takes that I got for you. The problems with one's position on the lexical impressionistic axis will likely increase with proximity of the lateral end of the other one. My trapezoid theory rears its head again. Lateral types are more distant from one another. That's what I took from that sentence.
I don't even agree, but I don't know. I just feel like I can relate to lateral people pretty easily on a certain way. There's just a through line there. The way that Tolgi does stuff, like, I like it.
Maybe you're a chart looper. Maybe that's what's happening.
I don't know about that.
I
Like,
still don't embrace chart looping as a concept, but like, whatever.
right. Like if you remember that one small man post where that whole top strip was the information area, like that's the thing that relates, like just boiling everything down into small bits of information.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I feel like in that way, the whole top half can talk to each other pretty easily. Where like you're willing to be like assholishly abstract about stuff, where other people would like not listen to you once you start talking that way, where it's like, who do you think you are? Where it's like you don't worry about whether you're sounding smart or not. You just kind of go for it.
I do remember that chart vaguely. And
I mean, it's the one that you squished into the circle with the goggles.
yeah. And remember, kids, if you want me to believe your neuro theory, you need to make a chart. Let's see. Another
Hashtag
quote.
visual learners.
Hashtag visual learners. Another quote. The more impressionistic your thoughts are, the more effort you need to put in to describe them. The more lexical your thoughts are, the more you struggle with getting out your prescribed notions. It makes it sound like communication is impossible. Both of these make it sound like communication is impossible, and I am not standing for it. The theme of
It
all the
actually,
types.
it just sounds
and-
like communication is impossible for if you're on the other side of the chart from the person explaining, or vice
yeah.
versa, which is obvious.
The theme with all the types and all the placements having some kind of unresolved tension in the difficulty of communication just doesn't hit me right. Probably, once again, because I am the neurotranscendent.
Tarbuck is just good at stuff, guys.
Yes, be better at stuff. It'll work out.
Yeah, become lateral. To become lateral, just think more.
Yes,
As you said.
yeah, that's my that's what I got out of one of the the lower portion of it.
Yeah.
And around in that area, we finally get to the real meat of the post. Quote, "So typing yourself by the hottest spot on your heat map is not a good idea. Disagree. You are what you do often. Discuss."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
agree.
it's the way he understands heat maps. Like, the way I understand them is that the red point, and the way people usually do that is like, that's the starting area. Like, this is me, obviously. It's not like...
Yeah, but it's also you in the context you are in the most.
I don't think people even think about it as like, I do this often, because it's just like, I just am that. Like, you don't even have to think about
You
what
are
you're doing.
what you do often. So you start with what you are.
Yeah, the reason you don't have to justify that is because that's what you are. That's what you are.
Yeah.
I both agree and disagree. On the one hand, yes, if you're free to do whatever, what you do often is what you are. You don't have to search for some other point that you are drawn towards where you should be, whatever. You're doing what you're doing. If it works, hottest point in your heat map is your type. But on the other hand, there are people who just, by way of the environment they are stuck in, are forced to act and think a certain way and essentially be a certain character for absolutely most of the time. That even might be the mode that they most likely just slip into because the one they're most used to, and they're absolutely miserable. If they weren't stuck in that environment, they would pick another one, but through what is mandatory, what is demanded of them, they have to do that a lot, to the point where it's the neutral state, and the neutral state is absolutely unbearable.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that might be one situation where that isn't necessarily true, but that's likely the exception.
Yeah, I feel like just in setting that up, we already positioned it as an outlier. Not an outlier in terms of like how often it occurs, but
Yeah.
we all acknowledge that that's an altered state, and it is not supposed to be like that. So like it pre-excludes itself.
In an idealized setting, you do what you do often. You are what you do often. No. You are what you do often out of your own volition.
Yeah.
How about that?
There you go. Maybe.
It's
Out of your own gut.
more possible to sell me on that. I just think like I keep coming back to you are what you do often, partly because that's one of my leftist Jordan Peterson takes. Because remember, that's one of the things that I am.
Yeah.
I use that often as a prompt to get people to consider what they do so that they can try and rearrange their lives to be the version of themselves that they want to be.
Right.
Maybe I'm just having a hard time letting that go. I don't know.
I think how you do it is important, though.
Yeah, naturally.
Or the reasons you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you want to get back at your dad, for instance, you could sleep with me.
I don't think I even like connected that. That just seems like a complete non sequitur in my head.
Well, it connected for me.
But I'm here for it.
Well, it connects for the people who do that often.
Yes, exactly.
I'm lost. I'm a lost toy.
Alright.
All I'm feeling right now is this the comment by a deleted person that just says words.
I think that's once again ego.
Probably. All the deleted user comments say, yeah.
That's how I feel right now.
Yep.
I think I have overflowed slightly into linearity.
Yeah, this post could be a fourth the length it is.
Yeah.
I
Or
go into
less.
greater detail about this in the voicemail that I just left on the Vic and Hope Patreon only podcast, where they do like a 1 month roundup, but actually it's 3 months because they don't make them very often. But in order to get this to sink into my head, I had to read it out loud.
Yeah, I can't read story posts really. Writing is not his strong suit.
He has cool ideas though.
Sometimes.
It's just not presented well.
He can literally like structure sentences and things, but he can't write as in like make a digestible thing.
Yeah, I want it in like the form of a tweet. Can you fit
Yeah,
your
again,
idea into
this is lateral pacing.
Yeah.
This is lateral pacing.
Yep. Yeah.
It's funny because he recently typed himself a statistician,
He did. Oh god, I hate that.
but he's a big lateral gatekeeper. So I like told him it's like when you gatekeep so hard, you gatekeep yourself. We'll see how that pans out.
So I think I sort of maybe figured out or I had a thought about what could be the inverse to overflowing. If you take overflowing as like a overwhelm response, like where your brain is forced to work so hard on and focus on so many things that you kind of burn out and go into a super linear state. I wonder if the opposite could be something like anxiety or existential spiraling, where you sort of like but I don't know if that actually flows from I don't know if that's a wraparound or not.
It could be like you focus on one thing so hard that you like realize, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah, suddenly everything explodes into a million details that just completely.
Yeah. Your thought is like a lance, like a long stick, and you're running with it, running completely linearly one direction. You run into a wall and it splinters in all these different directions.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of like saying the same word over and over.
Yeah, and it stops sounding like a word, and then it just...
I got a long lance for you, and you can run it into your furry walls.
I also had one other thought, because I didn't... Well, I'm sorry. I talked over your joke.
No, yeah, ignore it.
It just seemed like he was waiting for a reaction.
Yeah, and I was very happy to
Anyway, because there was all this, like, I read as much of the post as I could. I kind of bounced around for reasons. But I wondered, I don't think this is entirely true, but the thought came to me, is meditation a form of lexical to impressionist movement? Or can it be? Because you sort of can shut down your like categorical thinking and just kind of melt into experience.
Contemplative versus meditative.
Contemplative versus meditative. I prefer sensate still, but
sensate, I like it more on its own, but I like meditative next to the other types. I think that flows better.
I'll think about it. I will consider your proposal. I don't dislike the popular consciousness form of meditation because, like, a friend of mine a long time ago meditation pilled me about how there's different kinds, and what it basically boils down to is different ways that you can take agency over your mind and what your mind is capable of doing. And dissolving yourself into the moment-by-moment experience is only one of those things. It's like if you described exercise as running. There's way more kinds than running.
I have also experienced the downsides of, let's say, phenomenological group meditation. For like as a best, it was insightful, but also was really... in some ways kind of wrecking me, so I had to leave it behind. Anyway, I just kind of the reason that I thought about that is because it kind of like meditation in the sense of like focus on your physical experience. That kind of feels like tapping into sort of extreme impressionism, like completely uncategorized thinking.
Mhm.
Not even thinking, I guess. So again, I said I'm not sure whether it's.
Mhm.
I'm not going to defend that thought too much because, but just intrigued me,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, do we have anything else on this one?
Not really.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
think that's
mostly obvious. Oh boy, are we ready for Homestuck?
that.
Wait a second.
Homestuck
I'm gonna
runner.
I mean, I hear you can't stop it.
I'm gonna get some water real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, do that. Now I'm almost wishing we had started started at the end real quick, but I do have a lot of thoughts on this. But
Okay, I'm back.
all right, so we have another Uranium Coffee original.
Yeah, okay. So I paired this up with two. This is the aspects from Homestuck, neurotyped. The reason there's two is I did it before, but the aspects are like really broad concepts. Like I literally think you can justify putting any aspect in any neurotype spot, just depending on how you read it.
You mean they don't correlate to neurotypes? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So what I did for the second post was I just defined the variables I was using to type them.
Yeah,
So I
that's
guess
right.
it ties into Classpecting or the aspects, but it also is sort of just defining the chart itself almost.
Yeah. It's kind of a very interesting strategy of having two systems you're trying to figure out, and instead of solving them separately, you just see how those problems overlap,
Mm-hmm.
and then see what conclusions you can draw from that.
Yeah. Do you want to describe your post?
Yeah. I guess, yeah, I'll go through the first one real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So, the most lateral, in human calculator analyst, I have the mind aspect, right in the middle, analyst fascinator, the light aspect, and then fascinator new type is the space aspect. And then technician, quick-witted, there's time, quick-witted overseer, doom, and then void on the right. And then we have blood, contemplative understanding, hope in the middle, and then heart on the right. And then life, bookkeeper, level-headed, breath on the bottom middle, and then rage on the right. Yeah.
I do think I like the arrangement of the second chart better, but that's just me.
So
Yeah, this one seems in some ways kind of like stacked in strange ways.
yeah, also a lot of it feels kind of anecdotal. Like a lot of these directly map onto the positions of people we know to have that neurotype and that aspect. Like you put space pretty much where you are,
Right.
void pretty much where I am, doom pretty much where Tarbak is.
Yeah. And mind where Tolgi is.
Yeah.
Light where...
time where Exi is.
Yeah. Light about where Guru is. Sort of.
Yeah.
Close. Blood where Karkat is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we should talk about the second post because it's probably the one that's actually
Right.
structurally
Yeah.
sound.
Basically, I don't agree with this arrangement. Maybe, like, again, you can have these interpretations. But...
We bring it up now because this is at the time we are chronologically in right now for the typeline.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to do two neurotyping and classpecting posts, so we are now going to jump ahead and do a modern neurotyping and classpecting post. That is actually correct.
Yeah. All right. So, we have rows and columns defined. This one is different because, there's 12 aspects, and the first one I arranged them like 3 by 4. This one is 4 by 3. So at the top, there's different rows. On the top row, I called it ontology. And then you have doom, the lexical, which is the known variables column. And then you have mind in the selected variables. Heart in obtuse variables.
Which is the blue column. Yeah. Wait.
Mine is blue. And then heart in obtuse variables, purple. And then hope in unknown variables in the red. And then the next row, I called it physics. You could also call it /knowledge or science or whatever. You have time in the known, light in the selected, space in the obtuse, and void in the unknown. And then you have the society row at the bottom. You have blood in the known, life in the selected, rage in the obtuse, and then breath in the unknown. Yeah, that's all of those. And then there's also arrows on there, which there is an aspect wheel, which you can find in the second image. Like, this is a canon thing. The arrows are indicating the dichotomies on the wheel, like the opposite types.
If you don't know what any of this means, do not despair. There's a video about it on this very channel.
Homework. Yeah. Daft Punk's homework.
Homework.
Right. Somebody talk, because my voice is going out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, I have some thoughts on this.
Ties in.
What's that?
I want to highlight that it ties into the first post way back from the beginning of the Wormhole Theory, because of the arrangement of the dichotomies in the middle. You see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, it does exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
nice.
At least for the Timecake post, it does exactly the impressionist lexical. We jump from tactile to tactile and from observation to observation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So
so you have,
let's...
like, known tactile and then obtuse tactile. Yeah.
One thing that I like about this, which there, in a way, you can kind of read sort of flows from like into these rows and columns to some extent. So especially the green column, how you have blood, time, and then doom. I feel like that all kind of ties into what's the word? Like mortality and relating to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have blood, which all has to do with connections, bonds, suffering, physicality.
Yeah, it's also specifically about martyrdom.
Yes.
Which is death for a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you have time, which, it also includes time, which includes the, inevitability of death, etc., the drive.
And also kind of the day-to-day mechanics of death, like dead things in general.
Mm-hmm.
And dying again as a natural consequence that things might have. And then doom is this very large scale inevitability of death, sort of conceptual.
It's kind of like, as beings, like, if we take everything into account, it's like we're already dead, basically. Like, there is no escaping it.
Yeah. I do think that it maps well onto, like, the Latlex region, because it involves kind of knowing what's going to happen and taking in all of the wide range of details.
Mm-hmm.
So I see in the notes that I'm supposed to be very afraid when we talk about the heart aspect. What's with that?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so think about obtuse variables, space specifically. That's like physics, but the easiest way to understand them is kind of like you just sort of see the thing moving. Like the actual like calculations for orbiting and stuff like that, it would be like really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get above that, like more obtuse and more into like the essence of being, in the comic, heart literally translates to souls.
Like Kingdom Hearts, yeah.
The physics of souls.
Hey!
The obtuse physics of souls.
Yes, accurate to life. Watch my lecture, Other Kin Are Wrong and So Can You, Souls 101 seminar.
And the way it's pictured in the comic, too, it's like there's a bit where somebody's like getting their soul ripped out.
I also tend to argue that heart, I argue that because, what's the word? Platonic objects are kind of a thing in Homestuck, especially in the crafting system. I argue that heart kind of has to do specifically with platonics, and then mind has to do with specifics.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Selected variables.
So heart is all about what makes a thing, what makes an apple an apple. What is an apple? What is the apple? Whereas mind is about all of the apples and what makes apples different from one another.
Now consider that Dirk really likes Plato, and Nepeta literally lives in a cave. Cave, allegory of the cave.
Oh god.
I'm assuming that's a pun based or a joke about what characters are what aspects.
It's not really a joke. It's just
those are
a
both
connection.
Yeah, those are both heart characters.
Yeah.
Wow, I'd never even noticed that. There's a lot of symbolic and thematic connections.
I just now thought of that. Yeah, it makes sense.
That is really funny. Wow.
Yeah. I would, like you point out in the post that you're not quite happy with the term physics.
Yeah.
And I'm also not really happy with that because it feels kind of more concrete and more real worldy than both society and ontology. They both carry this notion of thought objects, and physics is definitely also that. We don't tend to think of it that way in society. We think of it as physics as the way stuff actually is.
Yeah, that also only really contains space and time, not so much light and void.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about narratives and narratology as maybe a things for that. Narratology is essentially the philosophy of narratives, or the cultural theory of narratives, which kind of broke structuralism at one point. Very funny. Because it's also kind of up from society and down from ontology in the sort of generalization, laterality way, to me at least.
Yeah.
And both time and space players in the comic are kind of facilitators of narrative desire in different ways. Time players more the, again, mechanics of it, just making sure things work. Time players more space players more conceptual, idealistic, whereas time players are genuinely interested in the narrative as is, exploring it, being relevant to it, etc. Whereas Void is kind of the negation of narrative, or the recognition of narrative for what it is, and therefore as not what it's supposed to be designed, kind of.
Also, there was one, I guess, series of videos too, but the guy, he says the time and space kind of represent the stage of the comic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first half was written by a space player, the second by a time player.
Mm-hmm. And there's also another observation he had, is it goes from one half is blood and one half is breath also in the story. Probably breath to blood, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so.
This is probably slightly incomprehensible, but...
it goes from a free-form thing to okay, everybody is here. Now the only thing we have to do is argue with each other.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I went into a fugue state for a large portion of that. I'm back now, kind of, but fugue state.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have any ideas on this, just from outside observations?
Yeah, from having been in the lecture.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep in my head what all of them are. There's several of them that I do totally recognize there. What I'm interested in for this is weird symmetries. The move between, I think doom and life, is that it? That kind of one step beyond a knight's move is interesting to me.
As Tolgi once said, the big night.
The big night.
The big night.
Still not over. My favorite chess piece, the big night.
Yeah.
It's episode 2, I think. Something like that. He speaks of a big knight's move. Still hilarious.
Yeah. So the actual lines are kind of just referring to, just to make it clear exactly what the connections are as far as which ones are pairs.
Yeah, the reason I did that too is because I wanted something that also had really cool symmetry, when I would put the arrows between them.
Yeah.
Okay, hope and rage mirrors the same way on the other side of the chart.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about like specifically the neurotyping connection to all this. I'm looking at life and rage and kind of thinking about like what I feel like there is a.
I mean, like Koi, you talked about how you kind of feel similar to new types being similar to clear-sighteds in a way, right?
Yeah, I think the way, like, it kind of has to do with extracting like an important seed of like relevance, where they kind of go about it in a different way, where new type is like you're just conceiving of so many things where eventually you run into like, oh, here's this like cool string of information that like solves everything. And then clear-sighted is like you just go directly to the most relevant thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that kind of works with like rage. Like it's like you just kind of break the what's going on to get at the like truth is one thing that rage relates to.
Yeah, cutting through right to the point.
Yep.
And then I think what's interesting is I'm thinking about society and in relation to life and rage. Because rage, I think where it connects to the purple column is kind of that it's got a bit of an idea that something like it's not completely indiscriminate, but it's also more based on dissatisfaction in some ways, and truth, which is can be a slightly arbitrary or subjective thing or context specific.
Yeah, people argue the truth.
Yeah, and life is a bit more of a. Ouro kind of calls it sometimes the aspect of fascism, something like that. It has a sort of it's nurturing, but it also kind of is like there's a structure to it in a way, right?
That's the pitfall. That's the danger sort of.
Yeah, exactly.
Aspect.
So
and not all life players are fascists. But
you're growing this thing in a specific way and facilitating a specific environment.
Yeah,
it can very easily lead you there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which, that ties into, like, Doom as being, like, you zoom out and look at everything that is going on, and, like, here's the statement of everything. There's this one dude who, like, reviews, like, not comics, cartoons, but he also, like, talks about politics a lot, but his view is usually, like, explaining everything that's going on. It's like, how can people not see like how like fucked we are? I would also like put him in that like human calculator analyst category. He said it seems like I'm the only one who can see the future. It's pretty funny.
I also feel like we slightly missed the comment that sort of explained what exactly these rows and columns mean, that the name or the variables bits.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the known variables, it's like you're only going with things that are absolutely clear and obvious. You're not really stretching them or anything. So yeah, it's just this is what's going on. Selected is kind of you're picking out the variables you want, like the ones that will expand into more things that will logically follow from that. So kind of like juicy knowledge and stuff. I don't know.
Stuff that expands in water.
Obtuse variables are things that are true. They're just hard to understand and explain to people. What is that if not purple?
Right.
And then unknown variables, it's like you're working with things that you will never know all the way. Like, it's just something to reach into and pull stuff out of.
I think one could sort of cynically read something very grim into hope being an ontology of unknown variables. Sort of a certain naivete or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's really not. It's knowing that you don't have the answers and only through that can you kind of build this better world. If you
yeah.
already know everything, then you know how it's going to end. That's why Doom is this ontology of known variables. You know what will happen. There's nothing you can do about it. That's way more depressing. In the upcoming video, which is hopefully linked because I'll hopefully be done with it by then, there's a line I wrote which is, there may be plenty of deaths worse than fate. There may be plenty of fates worse than death, but there's no death worse than fate.
That's really fucking good, dude.
Yeah.
The thing you said about the way you described it, the hope new type, it reminded me of the way EGAG described the corners at one point. So human calculator is you know that you know. New type is you know that you don't know. Bookkeeper is you don't know that you know. And then pure instinct is you don't know that you don't know. And these are like the sort of approaches they go.
Does that
face things
like corners analysis line up for you? Do you feel like breath is very like breath and hope and blood and doom are all in the right places? I think I remember those symbols based on
Yeah, so doom and hope, yes, and then thinking about it, breath, like it is very much a don't think about things, just do stuff.
Yeah,
be free.
I'm not sure about blood.
Blood,
but...
I think that works because like it's like you're not thinking about the fact that like you're not getting so abstract. You're like keeping it. You're just know what needs to be done, and you're not thinking about extra stuff. You're not getting meta with anything.
Yeah. One other thing that I find kind of funny is that heart is kind of over fascinator, which is the neurotype of cult leaders, which are cults of personality.
Yeah.
And the two in the middle are time and light. Do you feel like those are the centrist types? Does that
space and light? Yes,
space and light.
I do think space space could be a centrist one for sure. I feel like it kind of includes like potential expansiveness, big picture thinking,
and like sitting and waiting for the right moment, which most of the time involves doing nothing. And then light is just kind of like, you know, you can disperse this knowledge to other people, but it is kind of just about acquiring a huge database of relevant information.
Yeah.
Or relevance being the center of attention. In the center of the chart.
Yeah. And these feel way more like placings of the aspects themselves as opposed to players of that aspect.
Yeah, it's impossible to do that anyways because we have Caliborn and Dave on opposite ends of the chart, both time players.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, first of all, players will massively vary in general, but also, I like how it ties the aspects themselves and clearly just the aspects themselves onto these sort of aspects of lexicality and laterality to make a chart out of it.
Yeah,
that's nice.
That was the whole approach, was like clearly define my variables so that I don't, and like try and tighten that really well. Yeah. Any more on this?
It's hard to talk about symbology.
Especially like we're kind of, again, we're explaining two systems that we're sort of trying to understand through each other. And most people listening to this will not even know what a homestag is, so it's especially difficult here.
Oh yeah, one thing quick. Tarbuck, you're like, we call Classpecting you as Prince of Doom. Prince is usually, they're described as destroying their aspect.
Tarbuck, killer of human calculators.
Human calcu slayer.
Like, it seems to me you map out everything that, all the ways that we're screwed over, and like try to find a way to eliminate that.
Yeah.
To like make way for a better way.
I'm trying to unfuck the world.
Yeah, I kind of quickly talked to Carla Dotsmite, also has been on the show before, about this because she typed Tarbuck at some point as a I think Air of Hope. Definitely
Yeah.
a Hope player. I think Air. Which is, a bringer about of this brighter future. And to me, it's way more, hey, all the signs point at how this is all going down the drain, how this is going to happen. Fuck that.
Yeah.
It feels way more like the destruction of a terrible end than the other way around.
Oh, yeah, and the way it goes to life too. Recently, Scory accepted that he's a life player. I sort of described
finally.
it. Yeah, I sort of described it as like systems, almost like creating and maintaining systems, and that kind of like fleshes out life for me, as you can understand it as like, a gardener or something, but you can also think of it as like a mechanic, like you're fixing and maintaining for use.
There's also
Maybe-
oh, go ahead.
Which, that's like a thing Tarbuck does in real life, kind of.
Yeah,
Something
that's
similar.
true. Literally, the only reason why I chose wood as my primary crafting medium is because it is abundant and cheap and easy to do in an apartment. Whereas, like, what I would rather be doing is like metalworking, but that is cost prohibitive for the tools and for the noise that it generates and for the materials.
Yeah, there was that like long conversation we had recently, and like I'm just remembering like, here's how your spine is supposed to be J-shaped, and like you're supposed to sleep at a 6-degree angle. You're sort of like, that's your like life side to me. Like, here's the way you should do things.
And if you want more information about that, you can look at the Ubermensch podcast, which is hosted on the Archplays Discord, or Archplays Discord. It's hosted on the Archplays channel, the channel that I have where I talk with people about subjects of things.
Yeah.
Because
Important.
I made a mistake in my branding. You see, I wanted a channel that centered around all of my personal interests. So it had knives, which I used to sell, knives that I used to make, woodworking and knot tying videos and weaving and all of those like historical crafty things. But there's really no space for like editorial content there, so I'm stuck talking about subjects in other spaces that are not my actual main channel. So I don't get to use my cool vanity link, which I had because the Tarbuck Transom YouTube channel is older than the Google buyout.
Wow. There's also one other synchronicity that I find funny, is that speaking of Prince of Doom and leftist Jordan Peterson, I also consider Jordan Peterson a Prince of Doom, just a bad one. Because he tries to do what I think Tarbuck does, but he instead ends up destroying things with Doom by making everything seem like I don't know, he dials in on like the oppressiveness like just so hard, and like
also again, Jordan Peterson has this whole thing about narratives and how they shape our lives and such. Narratives are very doom-bound, right? This is how the story plays out. Sort of could be the motto of the doom aspect. This is how it all ends.
Yeah.
And he makes this seem like a kind of rigid thing, and how you play the story well, how you become the hero. And this is the kind of thing that I alluded to earlier with narratology, which was this field that was kind of born out of structuralism in France in the like 60s, 70s. I might be wrong with that. Maybe it's 50s. Don't correct me. And some guy, I forgot who, sort of said after a few years of them doing it, trying to classify what narratives are, which is very, very difficult. If you try on a machine level to describe what a narrative is, you can't. It's as hard as what is a chair. Well, it's all those... It doesn't work. We have an intuitive understanding of what is a narrative and what isn't, but you can't put it into words. And they failed miserably. So one guy said at one point is, okay, narratives are a structure, and what the structure does is being completely opposed to structuralism as a framework. Narratives are a destructuralizing structure.
Narratives are a destructure.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea.
Oh, another funny overlap. What are life players if not narrative verifiers?
Before we move on, narrative verifiers. Haha, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got
I was going to say, before we move on to another thing, I wanted to... Jordan Peterson versus me, the leftist Jordan Peterson, is the difference between a Prince of Doom as a villain and a Prince of Doom as the hero.
Exactly. Yeah. I think what he kind of like, he tries to do the sort of like destroying the sense of being trapped in your life, or the sense that everything is,
destruction of meaninglessness.
Yeah, he tries to destroy nihilism, but in the process, he kind of weaponizes extremely rigid and confining structures in a way that like is not helpful and not constructive, at least not to me in the slightest.
He's constantly deep-throating the idea of being a gatekeeper as a concept.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's a Durst Prince of Doom, and you're a Prospect Prince of Doom.
Oh yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Oh god, let's not even get into lunar space.
Because all Durst streamers are villains.
No, but he's also like very uptight, and that's why I consider him a Durst.
There's like 2 moons that people sleep on. Like they'll end up in different ones. Like one is like a golden city, the other one is like purple and dark, and yeah.
We talked about this in the lecture. We didn't have to explain it again. Watch the lecture.
If you are watching this before the lecture, oh my god, the experience you must be having.
Oh, I feel so bad.
Yeah.
Trying to talk about like aspects or Classpecting in general makes me realize how difficult it is to talk about these things. Like I can think about this stuff and make all these connections just stare at it and just drink it all in, but when I actually try to put it into words, it's like, oh god.
Right.
This is so complicated.
Classpecting seems like the perfect example of when to use the anti-backwards method of lexical analysis.
Run over that again. What was
okay, so
what's
you
the
try
end? How
to
does it
phrase
work?
something.
You try to explain it in words, and you fail, inevitably.
Yeah.
And you look at what you wrote down, and are like, okay, why does this seem wrong to me?
Right.
Why doesn't this quite scratch that itch?
Yeah.
And then you can reverse analyze from that what you weren't understanding about the topic enough to put in words.
Now I understand what Tarbuck was getting at in the first place.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
You needed an example.
Yeah, you start with something. You start with a hunch, and then you realize you're not quite on base, and then you try to figure out why.
Close enough.
Yeah. That's. I was describing the process of Classpecting someone, but like, yeah,
You try to reframe your hunch.
exactly.
That's like what I did to make this work. I like had a hunch, and then the first post was a fail, and then I was like, okay, why did that fail?
Yeah. What do you even call Classpecting? Is it symbology? Is it narratology? Is it something else?
Neurotypology.
Oh, God.
Yeah, sure.
I like it as a system. I find it fascinating because there's so much, I don't know, like meaning to get out of it, or like this sense of like,
Trueness.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it taps into whatever part of us really likes stories for whatever reason that is. It taps into that in a sense of like, it's a typology system that is flexible enough to include like lots of different interpretations of something that is what's symbolically. Yeah, I don't know.
It is a
Yeah.
It's a theme, essence, symbolism, loop-de-hoopla. That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
It's nice looking pictures.
Yeah. It helps me to understand. Yeah. It's helped me to understand like specific aspects of myself as far as like how I relate to the part of me that is angry and the part of me that like is frustrated with the world, or the part of me that relates to myself and takes on aspects of other people, or etc. Like, it helps me understand exactly how how these different things manifest in me in my life.
Yeah,
which is
again, it is sort of formed as a system to aid with telling narratives.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a narrative
to make
system,
a narrative, and it helps you understand your life sort of as a story. You can look at these, and they don't tell you as much about yourself as a person as they tell you about kind of, okay, what is the arc that I've chosen?
Mm-hmm.
What is the hero's journey that I'm on?
And it's also not too restrictive, as in like a step-by-step thing. Joseph Campbell.
You had to get that whole Campbell jab in, didn't you?
Yep. I understand why people like it, but at the same time, I find that it's leaned on so heavily that people just don't understand that there are more interesting variations to try out.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean the sort of archetypical hero's journey. I meant in general.
Yeah.
Jab and dab.
Yeah, arc was a better way to say it.
Got it.
I want more people to structurally look at the hero's journey and then intentionally defy it, so that they can have that to fall back on. And when somebody tries to analyze it from the point of the hero's journey and is like, no, actually, we tried very specifically to not do that. Fuck you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... Hey,
maybe that's why I like Classpecting, because it offers an alternative.
Yes.
Good. Everyone who's super everything is the hero's journey. Please explain Finnegan's Wake to me through Plans of the Hero's Journey. Please try that.
The anti-hero's wandering.
This feels like it was a good post-show ramble. Should we just end it here? Or?
Yeah, I think this is pretty good. Does anybody else have anything that you want to promote? Links to your other stuff?
I have no other stuff to link to, so...
Yeah. Look forward to me in my appearance in the audience of a 9.5-hour lecture on Ruby.
Oh boy.
Oh dear.
God.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
And I thought this episode was rough.
It'll probably... I am hoping that it will be out by the time that this episode is out. I will make some kind of announcement when I'm in it, because I feel like my call-outs from the audience add a lot, because I am very self-centered.
Yes, of course.
It also convinced me to watch Ruby, which, has been nothing but good for my life. Ruby is awesome.
I don't think I've watched the completely new episodes.
Did you get past season 3?
Yeah. Last thing I watched was when they fought that big-ass mech on the water.
Okay.
In Atlas, I thought that was.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't.
Yeah, where they changed the frame rate as a reference to Studio Trigger.
Yeah.
But only for that one little bit.
Yeah, I think that was in there, yeah.
Yeah.
The Mantle, I think, I don't remember.
I'm actually not there yet, but...
okay.
I know everything that happens up to the present, so...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I might be one season or so behind, but I'm not that far behind.
You can also see me in a much further in the future upcoming lecture in the same event. This is the RadCon-like event that I just got out of, where I am the sole defender of Avatar Legend of Korra out of a panel of like 5 people.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
I like that show. I don't hate it. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we broke 3 hours.
Kai, you want to pitch
I've
something?
plugged it before, but I guess I'll just plug my music again. Like, you should listen to that.
Yes.
Cool stuff.
Right.
Yes, check it out.
I
It's
will
good.
plug the Twilight video.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be
Atemporal
out.
Twilight Vampiric Ontology and Transdeixic Artifacts, which will be online once those episodes come out. I promise I am now committing myself to it.
Excellent.
I will have finished.
And in the rare
it.
case that it's not, it'll still be added to the description anyways.
Yeah. Also, some of the people here might have voices in that. I don't know. I haven't given out all the quotes yet.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to recording a line or two for that.
I gotta look into that too.
All right.
Cool.
pretty sure that this is the first thing my voice has ever been on the internet in a public place. So that's fun.
Nice.
Wait, weren't you in the Classpecting lecture?
No, I wasn't. I don't think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
No, I don't think
I
so.
probably would have said more.
Start an OnlyFans and then link that.
No. Yeah, no. That
I
doesn't
mean, you
exist.
can use it
Okay.
for anything.
That's true.
Don't they be in Aura, you just use it for like cooking or something? Cooking show.
Wow.
That's
great.
hilarious.
Food porn.
Yeah, once we're through all posts, we're going to do a Neurotypeline cooking show.
Oh.
Or I will.
Awesome.
You're like, 2 eggs, some flour.
Maybe we can invite Leon for that one too.
Oh, sure, no. It's going to be a Neurotypeline project. You're all invited.
Sweet. Sweet.
All right.
Okay.
I'm probably going to meet up with a person I met through Neurotyping Discord a while ago, so...
I hope one day I
soon,
can do that.
this summer. So, yeah, join Neurotyping communities. It's fun. You meet cool people. You might do a podcast with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine living in 2020 and meeting people for any other purpose than doing a podcast.
And we have all to thanks for our favorite seer of blood.
Who's that?
That's Trixie.
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I typed as that once.
Okay.
I don't know if everyone necessarily agrees.
Probably a blood player.